Right, good afternoon everyone. We'll make a start then. Item 1, membership of the committee. Yes, Councillor Sokol.
Yeah,
Councillor Lawson.
Councillor Mahmood Akhtar so far Councillor Saba. We haven't covered the vacancy one. Yeah.
Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. Substituting for Councillor Smith. Thank you.
Item 2, minutes of previous meeting. You're moving it, Councillor Lola. Is that seconded? Seconded, Councillor Sokol. All in favour, please show.
Thank you.
Item 3, interest and lobbying. Nothing? Councillor Gwynn.
Yeah, in the course of my work as a councillor, I've been lobbied by, well, one of the residents who's opposed to the development of the Sun, who's here today. It's page 131. 131.
Just lobbied Councillor McGuinn, no action.
No action, I've listened to what the resident had to say.
Page 149, lobbied by objectors, no action taken.
Yes.
Application 2019. Oh, sorry. Can't hear me? Really? I've managed without a microphone, you know.
It's just protocol.
Yeah. 2019, 93445, no comments. I would give no comments.
Any further? No. Well, I was lobbied by email with regard to 223 Marsh Gardens. I gave no. It was just an email. I just read it.
Anybody on the...
No, I haven't.
No.
Deputations and petitions.
None received, Chair.
Oh, I'll go back to admission of the public.
It's just for members to note that there's a potential exempt item which we'll go into, which relates to item 15 on the agenda, so that there is a potential for us to go into private session, subject obviously to members.
Item 6, public question time.
Madam Chair.
And item 7, the site visits, which we've done this morning. And then we go on to the local authority appeals.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Teresa Harlow, Development Management Team Leader. There are 19 appeals to report to members on this agenda. 14 of those appeals were dismissed. 5 were allowed, one of which was allowed with an award of costs against the council, citing unreasonable behaviour. That's the appeal decision at agenda item 2.19 on page 81 of the agenda. That was 1 Spring Lane at Home Firth. Thank you, Chair.
No comments, right? Well, we'll move on to the applications. And the first one is on page 89, and it's Wolfstones Heights Farm, Upperthorne.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Giles Cheetham, and I work on public rights of way matters, including applications for orders to change, or in this case, divert public footpaths. This agenda item is the consideration of an application seeking to divert part of Homefirth Public Footpath 60 at Wolfstone Heights, Upperthorne, as shown in Appendix Plan 1. which is up on the screen now. The applicant submitted statements in support of the application, which are at report appendices B1 and B2. Informal preliminary consultation has taken place. Those responses, both positive and negative, are summarised in the body of the report, for example at paragraphs 4.7 and 4.12, and are included in the appendices to the report. The applicant's comments on the consultation responses received by the Council are also in the report appendices at E1 and E2. Officers understand that the applicant considers that he has rebutted the negative consultation responses, that verge improvements on Wolfstones Road would be nice to have, but are not necessary, and that the diversion cannot be conditioned on the verge improvement. No submission further to the report being published has been received from the applicant, and I understand that the applicant's representative intends to address members today. I would like to correct one aspect of report paragraph 4.14, as Huddersfield Rucksack Club, a local walking group, did respond to preliminary consultation and objected to the proposed footpath change, and indeed their response is reported in Appendix D. They are respondent C in Appendix D. So paragraph 4.14 lists responses that are either no objection or we haven't had a response. I'd just like to correct that Huddersfield Rucksack Club should not be listed at paragraph 4.14. The officer recommendation is, in summary, for members to authorise the making of an order if the applicant undertakes to improve the verge along Wolfstones Road, points A to C on Plan 1, and if the applicant leads on promoting confirmation of an opposed order if and when forwarded to DEFRA and the Planning Inspectorate on their behalf to determine. Officers consider that members may consider all the information and may reasonably decide either to give authorisation to make an order or to decline and not to give authorisation to make an order. The Council may also form a view on whether to forward an order if opposed and on what stance to take on an opposed order if it is forwarded to the Secretary of State. The officer recommendation would allow this proposal to divert to progress. It would propose some mitigation for the change of terminal points if the diversion is to be completed, and if an order is made and opposed, would enable the applicant to pursue the desired diversion through DEFRA, where the disputed matters could be aired and explored in greater detail, with views potentially given in person and open to examination on this contentious matter to a deciding government inspector. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, we have a number of speakers on this one, Chair. We have Christine Senior.
Right, my name is Christine Senior. I represent the Ramblers and know people who enjoy walking along this particular footpath. My first responsibility is for the safety of everyone who comes on these guided walks. The proposed diversion does not provide a safe crossing point from the existing exit. Walkers have an uninterrupted view south and a more restricted view north. But still have good, most walkers do not like to walk on tarmac for long periods of time. And the drivers are not always considerate on rural roads. The possibility of, they don't always think about the possibility of pedestrians on the road. Noel Scanlon's consultancy statement for the applicant that the proposed new entry or exit of the diversion into Wolfstones Road is preferable to the current point in terms of safety. Objection to previous applications 2017 and 2018 to divert this public footpath We stated most users of the footpath continued from the existing point A, going south towards Upper Thong, or crossing over the road to the footpath on land owned by Home Valley Land Charity, to which permissive access has been granted for many generations, reaching the trig point at the summit of Woolstone Heights. The applicant traffic result survey by Paragon Highways, which supports our belief the survey data suggests more than 90% of pedestrians use the Home First 60 to reach point A and have these directions in mind. The issue being that walkers are disadvantaged by the proposed diversion on the grounds of health and safety. We are unconvinced that physical risk to walkers from vehicles using the drive of Woolstone Heights Farm is an issue. We urge the Council to consider our view
30 seconds.
in merit test about whether to make an order to allow this diversion will be against the interests and safety of footpath users. Thank you.
We have Andy Leader.
Thank you. This one. It's on, right. Thank you, Chair. I'm Andy Leader from Peak and Northern Footpath Society. I live in Home Firth and I've enjoyed this path for nearly 30 years. Peak and Northern object to the diversion, and I'd ask the committee to vote for option 1 today and refuse to make an order for the following reasons. There's no obligation on the council to make any order. However, it must have good reason not to do so. The council didn't know all the facts when this application was submitted. Crucially, it was unaware that Footpath 60 provides the only direct off-road access to Woolstone Heights, a place of public resort popular with many locals and visitors. The land is reserved for informal public recreation by Home Valley Land Charity, and this use is long established. Moving the terminus of Footpath 60 to point C and forcing the public to walk on or by a road detracts from the amenity value and public enjoyment of the current direct route. It makes access awkward and the walk less attractive. As the applicant's own traffic survey reveals, 90% of walkers use Footpath 60 to access Woolstone Heights. This information in itself is enough to justify not making an order. In planning terms, there is no public gain from the proposed development, which outweighs the loss of a valuable and well-used public amenity and the direct access to Woolstones. It's clear from the officer recommendation that officers may have some reservations. Why recommend making an order but not seeking confirmation should objections be made? There will be objections to any order, and this recommendation passes the buck to a future public inquiry, an inquiry that may cost the council £15,000 or £20,000. I suggest this is not a good use of public money, and there's no need to put this burden on the public purse when you can justify not making an order here today. The current line of Footpath 60 is low maintenance. The proposed new line is a significant maintenance liability being made of unconsolidated stone on a slope. This type of path is prone to water erosion and likely to require regular maintenance or replacing completely within a few years. It will also require regular maintenance to keep it clear of encroaching vegetation and hedges. Add to that the liability for a potential new footway, and again the financial burden to the public is considerable. Demand in Home Valley is for short 2 to 3 hour circular walks on easy off-road paths. The Woolstones Walk is one of the best examples we have. The proposal spoils the flow of this walk by sending walkers away from their destination on a long artificial detour, which includes a road. And it doesn't seem to fit with your climate emergency plan either, or Home Valley Parish Council's climate emergency plan to make the area walker friendly. Thank you.
Thank you. We have John Ingham.
Good
Good afternoon. I'll try to not repeat some of the points already made. I'm John Ingham. I'm representing the Home Firth Walkers Are Welcome group, whose mission is to promote recreational walking for residents and tourists alike in the Home Valley. We're based at the tourist office in Home Firth, and we have about 100 regular members. I'm also representing the Home Valley U3A, who have 5 walking groups of about 30 members each. So I'm representing about 250 people in the valley. This ancient path is not just any old path used by a few dog walkers, but a very, very popular historical route used by locals and tourists. This is one of our walking leaflets that we distribute in the tourist information. It's a walk up this very, very path, and it's the most popular walk that we have. We sell, many of this this leaflet in our tourist information. Just to give an example of how popular it is, last Thursday, probably about the same time as we are now, I was with a group of about 20 people on this very point of this diversion. Whilst I was there for maybe 2 or 3 minutes walking up this the footpath, 4 other groups passed in both directions. It is an incredibly popular route, and that's on a weekday in January. So imagine how popular this is in the summer and at weekends. This historic path, and part of which is an ancient coffin road, goes in an almost straight line from Netherthong to the summit of Wolfstones. 99% of users carry straight on across the road to the summit of Wolfstones, which is even more popular now due to the recent erection of a memorial near the summit. This lengthy diversion will take users a considerable distance out of the way to emerge on a narrow and busy road. They then will have to negotiate this potentially dangerous road. It's impossible to walk on the verge due to large stones having been placed there to regain the path at the summit. If this diversion is passed, it would benefit one person and considerably disadvantage hundreds of other users. Thank you.
We have Helen Leach.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Helen Leach, and I speak on behalf of the Huddersfield Rucksack Club, which is a local walking club founded in 1930. So we're actually celebrating our 90th year, and no doubt 90 years ago, some of our former members were walking on this path. We object to the proposed diversion of Home Firth Footpath 60, a long-established route on the grounds of public safety. The current track is wide and well-surfaced. It meets Wolfstones Road at the apex of the bend, which you'll have seen, with views in both directions. There's plenty of room for large groups of walkers to stop there and safely at point A on the plan. The path then provides direct access, as has been already said, across the road leading up and to the path leading up to the trig point at Wolfstone Heights, a popular viewpoint. The proposed diversion would meet the road at point C, and pedestrians would have to walk along either the narrow margin, which is difficult, or on the road around the bend to reach point A. We consider this to be less safe than the existing layout and therefore object to the proposed diversion. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Tim Cock.
My name is Tim Cock. I am an honorary life member of Home Firth Harriers Athletic Club, and I have run and walked along so many of these beautiful paths in this area, paths that we should be proud of and should be retained. I am speaking on behalf of the committee and members of the Home Firth Harriers with regard to the planning application to divert the path at Wolfstone Heights Farm. I would like to register our opposition to this proposed diversion. Our members have used this path hundreds of times over the last 50 plus years, both individually and as part of our organised summer training runs. And as a club, we feel that this seems to be a classic case of someone buying a property with an with the knowledge that an ancient and well-used right-of-way runs along what was a farm track through the property and then decides to block the route for their privacy. The applicant has been in discussion with officers about providing through a formal agreement with the council for improvements to construct a hard surface to the highway verge on Wolfstones Road between the current and the proposed endpoints of footpath 60. The temporary diversion, which is now proposed as the new path around the property, is a significant loop, making a distance longer and comes out further down from where the path should cross the road and not have to walk along it. Finally, in addition to the fact that the diversion not only destroys the traditional route that has been in existence for hundreds of years, it would also emerge at a particularly poor point further down the road for those wishing to visit the trig point or continue to link up with the footpath from Car Farm to New Close and Upper Thorn. Anyone wishing to continue their walk or run would now be forced along the side of the road and what is present a fairly busy road, a blind corner, and on an unrestricted speed limit zone, which is clearly not acceptable. The disadvantages of loss likely to arise are the map showing the path will not be correct. The path at present comes out immediately opposite the path to Wolfstones, which is an advantage. The path as it stands does not cause problems to the house residents by losing them their privacy, as it is well walled. People feeling passionately about this change and hope you will equally feel the same. Why should people who buy land with a path running through it, which has been in existence for hundreds of years, think that it can be easily diverted? Thank you.
Thank you. Malcolm Sizer.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking as a member and on behalf of Holmfirth Harriers. Rather than addressing the merits or otherwise of the application, I question whether the application to divert the footpath should even be considered, having regard to the provisions of the Act. I suggest not. I would ask you to consider the phrase substantially complete. It clearly means less than complete, but certainly more than half completed. I ask this because, as acknowledged by the applicant's agent, to quote, a public right-of-way cannot be diverted under section 257, as now applied for, where a development is substantially complete. End of quote. The development referred to is clearly that the subject of the planning permissions granted as listed in the officer's report. You'll have seen on your site visit this morning the extent to which the planning permissions have been implemented. Dealing firstly with application 2014/92814, as amended, its elements are formation of new access, stopping up of existing access, diversion of public right-of-way, and related external works. All have been carried out except for surfacing the new access and, of course, the stopping up of the existing access on the public right-of-way. Dealing now with the other application, 2017-91374, as amended, that comprises the demolition of the existing garage and stable, erection of garages, garden room and fuel store and associated landscape works. All the works have been undertaken, apart from the modest fuel store and open garden room and some minor finishing off. I would accordingly ask you to consider whether the works already undertaken in the context of all the works authorised by the planning permission are substantially complete. In my view, they are. As such, this application should not even be considered as it fails to meet the requirements of section 257 of the Act. Thank you.
We have two more speakers. We have Greg Cropper.
Another press started again. Okay. I'm here unusually as neither a supporter nor an objector to this application. I have some experience which I think may help you in your decision, so if you'll bear with me. I've lived in Upperthorne for 30 years, nearly. I know both the applicants and many of the objectors here, so I'm going to get some jip, no doubt. I'm a passionate supporter of walkers and footpaths. I've worked with Kirklees councillors and officers in the past to promote footpaths, and for transparency, I used to be the chair of the Home Valley Land Charity, which is at the top of Wolfstone, you see today. I'm in the unique position to comment because I've done something similar to this myself on adjacent property. I had a footpath coming through the property and it went past the front door. There was an advantage to me in moving it from the front of the house to the back of the house in terms of privacy, but what I did was I consulted all of the footpath people and all the groups locally, and I improved the potential new route, improved the drainage, put in a walker's seat, which you may or may not have seen. It's very well used, and it was a great success. I did have some objections to it, and it had to be sent to the inspector in Bristol, and fortunately for me, he chose to support me and said that this is an advantage to walkers and obviously an advantage to me as well. The new route was perhaps 100 metres longer if you were coming up the hill, but 100 metres shorter if you're going down the hill. So we start at the same place, we end at the same place, but there is a slight difference. So there is a similarity and a parallel with this application. There are some benefits that accrued from my application. A significant benefit was that there are now probably twice as many people who are using that footpath because they don't have to go into somebody else's property. And we've all been there. We walk through the footpaths and you're walking along and you're just trying to avoid looking into somebody's property. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. And when I spoke to people after the diversion had been approved, and they said, yes, it was that element was, it avoids the awkwardness of walking through, and twice as many people are now using it.
30 seconds.
I've observed the footpath at Wolfstone Heights at close quarters. It seems a very well used path by tourists and by local people, and I use it myself. When people get to the top, they go both left and to right. A number of people are already using the proposed new route, and in my view, the application has some benefits to both the applicant and potentially to walkers as well.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Cheers.
Thank you.
We have a final speaker who is Noel Scanlon.
Right, thank you. Obviously, we're pleased to have got the recommendation to make the order, notwithstanding the fact that we do take issue with some of the items in the reporting, but I won't bore you with that today. Yes, the diversion stems from a desire to fully implement planning permissions granted by the council, but there are wider public benefits to this diversion, as Mr Cropper has just so eloquently alluded to. I'll just add some more there, that's only a 4-foot width can actually legally be enforced up the current path. You'll have seen this morning on your site visit. The owner can make this so at any time. Just also to add, this is a recreational route which is well used. We've never denied that it's well used, but it's not a functional route. The diverted path is far wider and will be of far superior recreational quality, as you will likely have seen from your site visit. The diverted path when walking to point C brings users out at a much safer point from a traffic perspective, which even your engineers, not us, your traffic engineers have previously acknowledged. The diverted path is already being used, as Mr Cropper's just said, and has garnered a lot of support locally and beyond. It is even supported by the Home Valley Parish Council. We've heard several representations about 90% and 99% of people going up to the trig point. This assumption that everybody using the path will be turning left from point C to walk south up Wolfstones Road is baseless. We've submitted evidence on this, and there is nothing, not even from the council, to rebut that at present. The representations, I would surmise are either mistaken or misstatements, whichever, they're not accurate. To many, a considerable advantage of this is that it's a shorter and easier journey if you're going northwards towards, say, Honley or Wiltshire, or are coming from the north to south and want to get to Home Firth more quickly. What we've heard today a lot, just before I do go on to that, Mr. Sizer mentioned substantial completion. What I will say on that is your own lawyers will be able to tell you what substantial completion means in this context, but what I will say from a confident point of view is Mr. Sizer might well have been better served taking advice from an appropriate planning solicitor before making that representation. I'll just promote the case of Sage as a starting point there and say no more on that. What we've heard today a lot is the objectives of the scheme, some of whom we've attempted to engage with, is indirectly and directly revisiting the merits of the planning permissions, which is not what this process is for. What we've also heard is that this is somehow an opportunity in that representations were allegedly missed when the planning applications were originally being considered, and apart from being ridiculous and unlawful, it is again certainly not what this process is for. Perhaps an easier way to look at this application is to consider that planning permissions have been granted by the council knowing that the footpath would have to be diverted.
Thank you.
So your question becomes, what is your good reason not to support it?
That's it, Chair.
Members. Councillor Uppel.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask about the point that Malcolm Sizer did make about Section 257? Can we just get a response from Giles on that, if that'd be helpful?
Thank you, Chair. In relation to the substantially complete argument, officers don't agree that it is substantially complete. If I can bring your attention to paragraph 2.11 of the report, where Mr. Scanlon, on behalf of the applicant, or more accurately NSCL, the applicant's agent, but basically Mr. Scanlon describes his paragraph 6.3, the works that cannot be completed without the diversion of the footpath. This is with the benefit of, the report generally describes two planning applications and two non-material amendments to the planning applications, and this submission has been made after those have taken place. So this lists the works that cannot be completed. It's generally speaking as a highways officer who deals with these applications, advised accordingly by our legal service and planning colleagues, is that if somebody undertakes work in connection with their planning permissions, but it doesn't interfere with the existing public path, then they may do so. As far as I'm aware, the works that would affect the path, as members who went on site this morning could see, the path is still the same between points A and B. And the works that are described at 211, my opinion would be that those works have not been undertaken and that the development is not substantially complete. I wouldn't raise objection to the making of an order on the basis that the development is substantially complete. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody else? Councillor Homewood.
Personally, having visited it and just listened to what's been said now, I am concerned about the diversion because I'm struggling to see how doing that outweighs the harm that's being caused there. I do think it's a significant diversion, and I don't know what direction people turn, but it does make sense that they would continue to that section. I can also see that there's another footpath up to the left, or south, I guess it is on that diagram. I can't see one in any other direction. So I'm just, when the points people have made about the fact of walking along the road and so on, that does seem to be what I saw when I was on the site this morning. So yeah, that's my view really.
Councillor Stockholm.
Thank you, Chair. By listening to the objectors' views here, I feel myself this recommendation or diversion of the public footpath has divided the community in the Nethertongue village and around there. Yeah, I think what I'm feeling, I think there is a need bit more consultation with the local people or the people who use the original footpath. If taking into account, if we move to defer this item with further more negotiation between the applicant and the people who used to use the footpath, that's the way forward, I think, to unite the community and the area. Thank you.
Councillor Davies.
Yeah, I think this is extremely difficult in terms of decision making. There's no doubt the new path is quite a pleasant walk along. However, I recognise from the submissions that this is significantly different. It does change the whole nature of the path. And I think, as Councillor Sokol's just said, we've had quite a lot of contribution from community groups representing walkers. So I've got concerns that this is something which really does change it to a great extent, and it's certainly very difficult. So very similar to other councillors in that regard.
If there doesn't seem to be anybody moving a motion or anything, can I just say myself that having run on this course many times coming from Meltham, that would be fairly dangerous, or potentially dangerous with this diversion. But I'm waiting for somebody to. Yes, Councillor Rupp.
Yeah, definitely. We've had a lot of representations here, and I think it was mentioned earlier on by one of the officers that we've never seen this number of representations against the proposal, the diversion. I have concerns that it's going to go on road. I am concerned about safety, and I'd like to propose option 1.
Is that seconded? That is seconded. All those in favour?
Sorry, can we just be clear? Can we just be clear what option 1 is for the benefit of the public?
Yes. Right.
Giles, can you read out option 1?
Giles is going to.
All right.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to clarify in consideration of what Councillor Uppal has just said, that this morning what I said to members was that this application had received more responses than any other application. I did not say that it had received more objections than any other application. In regard to option 1, just to clarify, option 1 is at paragraph 220, which is to refuse to make the order.
Right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. Against? Abstention. Got them all.
Applications refused.
Now we move on to page 105, which is Parkwood Road, Golka.
Thank you, Chair. Victor Grayson, Development Management Master Planner in the Majors and Minerals team. This is an application for full planning permission for a residential development of 17 units. Members will recall that the subcommittee deferred its decision on this application on the 7th of November of last year, when 27 units were proposed at this site for biodiversity reasons. The red line boundary has not changed since then. The site is still 1.16 hectares in size. And the following photographs have already been seen by most of the members of the committee. The site's located between Barratt Holmes' Weaver's Chase development, which is still under construction. Work has progressed since this aerial photograph was taken, and many properties are now occupied, and the Parkwood Mills development to the northeast. The site's only street frontage is on Parkwood Road to the north. This is an older photograph showing the important group of listed buildings to the northeast of the application site. The site generally slopes downhill from its southwest edge to its northeast edge. The site was previously in agricultural use. In planning terms, this is a previously undeveloped greenfield site. No public rights-of-way cross the site, however the site has been used informally by pedestrians. No tree preservation orders protect trees on or adjacent to the site. This is a long view from higher land to the east on Bull Green Road. The site is the rougher grassed area behind the historic mill, and the ongoing building work at Weaver's Chase can be seen at the centre of the picture. This is a view from the north end of Grange Road where it meets the new, this is a long view from the north. The listed Parkwood Methodist Church can be seen to the right of the picture. This is the view from the north end of Grange Road where it meets the new Weaver's Close street within the Weaver's Chase development. This is where the committee site visit bus stopped in November last year. And again, we're looking at this rougher area of grass in the middle of the site, in the middle of the picture. This is a view from the west. There is a significant drop in levels and new retaining walls along the watercourse at the bottom of the site. And this is a view from within the site looking south at the new Weaver's Chase homes. This is a view from the end of Thorpe Green Drive looking east. And this is the site's frontage to Parkwood Road, where there is an existing pedestrian entrance to the site. There is a significant drop in levels, blurry photo. Takes a second to load. Along the site's northeast edge behind Parkwood Mills. Further southeast, a rock face of a former quarry exists, there is. The site forms part of a wider site allocation, HS 148, for residential development. The indicative site capacity for that site is 125 units. Land to the northeast of the application site is within the Longwood Edge Conservation Area, and the application site is just here at the bottom of this image. This is the approved layout for the Weaver's Chase development next door, where 96 units are being built. The current application site would be edged by private residential curtilages and open space, which follows the east-west dip across that site. The Weaver's Chase development also has 2 vehicular access points on Thorpe Green Drive and Grange Road, both of which connect to Laymore Road. And this is the Thorpe Green Drive Laymore Road junction. So, as previously mentioned, under this current application, 27 units were proposed within the application site. The applicant has amended the proposal to simply delete 10 of those units from the northwest end of the site. So members today are only looking at these 17 units in the larger part, the southeastern part of the site. The northwestern part of the site is ghosted out as proposed phase 2. This is the part of the site that potentially has the greatest ecological interest. The applicant is expected to come back with a further application for these 10 units later in the year, once adequate ecological surveys, which can only be completed at certain times of the year, and assessments have been carried out. Meanwhile, the applicant would like to progress with obtaining planning permission for these 17 units. The principle of development and land use is considered acceptable. The site allocation for residential development carries full weight. A mix of semi-detached and detached dwellings and one short terrace are proposed, arranged around a new estate road running the length of the site, off which private drives are proposed. Open space is proposed around the south and northeast edges of the site. A new footpath would run through this and connect to the Weavers Chase open space next door. A mix of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom units is proposed. Vehicular access is proposed from the east-west road in the Weavers Chase development, which in turn connects to Thorpe Green Drive. This road is already due to take the traffic of 73 units of the Weavers Chase development. The other 23 of that development are to be accessed via Grange Road. 2-storey dwellings with pitched roofs are proposed. Artificial stone elevations with natural stone detailing and concrete roof tiles are proposed. Some dwellings would have garages. Of the 17 units under consideration today, 3 affordable housing units are proposed. That represents a 17.6% provision. Members will recall that 5 affordable units were proposed under the 27-unit scheme, and that 18.5% provision was considered acceptable due to rounding. Crucially, splitting the previous proposals into schemes of 17 and 10 units will not reduce the overall number of affordable units required at this site. The other 2 affordable units, not to be secured today, if approval is granted, can be secured under the separate application for the 10 units expected later this year. All units would comply with the government's nationally described residential space standards. The number of units and the proposed density is considered appropriate for this site. The highways impacts of an additional 17 units using Thorpe Green Drive and Laymore Road is considered acceptable. Relevant junctions have capacity. Adequate parking is proposed on site and good pedestrian connectivity and permeability is proposed. The proposed open space locations are considered acceptable. However, due to shortfalls in certain open space typologies in the proposed development and locally in Golka Ward, a financial contribution of £7,727, which is 17 units worth of the £12,273 that the 27-unit scheme would have been required to provide towards off-site provision, is considered necessary. Neighbouring amenity impacts are considered acceptable. Good spacing is proposed between the existing and proposed dwellings. Drainage proposals involve on-site attenuation and connection to existing drains. A revised collated flood risk assessment has been submitted, and the lead local flood authority have recently commented informally that the proposed development is acceptable subject to conditions. Design and conservation considerations have been adequately addressed. The proposed development would be similar in its grain, massing, typologies, street layout and materials to the Weavers Chase development next door. The proposals would not have an unacceptable impact upon the setting of adjacent heritage assets. Now, regarding biodiversity, the applicant, in deleting the 10 units of 10 of the units of the previous scheme, has removed the most contentious part of the development in relation to biodiversity impact, because those 10 units were previously proposed in the part of the site that potentially has the greatest ecological interest. Additionally, new supporting information and biodiversity metric calculations have been provided. As per the committee update, the applicant has confirmed that the proposed development would result in a net biodiversity loss of 9.62%, whereas planning policies require a net gain. The applicant has advised that compensatory habitat provision to achieve that net gain can't be provided on site, therefore off-site provision will be necessary, and an additional planning obligation, item 5 in the list of heads of terms in the committee update note, is recommended accordingly. The applicant has also provided information regarding climate change and sustainability, dementia-friendly design and rockfalls. Approval of full planning permission for the 17-unit scheme is recommended, subject to a Section 106 agreement securing planning obligations as per paragraph 10.75 of the committee report, as added to by the committee update, and conditions. Thank you.
Councillor Davies.
A question on the flood risk and drainage issues. With regards to the water discharge in 10.55, it says that the proposed surface water discharge areas are considered acceptable in principle. Could you explain a little bit more about what that means in principle? Is this a theoretical situation, or is this something which is acceptable going forward?
in principle refers to the fact that the applicants were not proposing infiltration, which isn't appropriate on this site because of the geology and topography, and weren't proposing connection to the the Yorkshire Water Control public sewers. Instead, they're proposing to connect to a drain that runs off into towards the south-east corner of the site. I put in principle because at that stage we were yet to have a full confirmation from the lead local flood authority as to whether or not the details of the drainage scheme were acceptable. We now have that, so we're comfortable with proceeding on the basis of conditions being applied.
Councillor Sokol and then Councillor Market.
Yes, Chair. I got 2 points to ask officer. One is Section 106 contribution. I agree with the affordable house, open space and sustainable transport, but there is no mention about the education contribution in the area because 17 houses, then 10 units are coming after that. So is there any chance to ask the developer to make any contribution to this? And second one is, is the 10 units, is a separate application, it will come after that? Yeah, thank you.
Through you, Chair. Advice from the Council's education team was that, and this is set out under paragraph 8.2 of the committee report, was that no primary or secondary school contribution is required, although the 27 unit scheme would have met the threshold, but that comment was based on the 27 unit scheme, and the education team looked at capacity, existing capacity in local schools, and found that no need for extra provision was necessary. In terms of the 10 units, yes, the applicants would have to come in with a separate new application for those 10 units, and that will be consulted on and put to the local residents and consultee bodies as this application was.
Thank you, Chair. I'm usually in the position of, when I make comments to this, actually, when we've looked at reducing densities before, been in the position to complement what's been done in that respect. And actually what I'm going to say is no criticism of the work that Victor's done on this. We've seen elsewhere in sensitive sites in the area where the numbers of housing has been reduced, and that isn't what's happened, is it? It's just the 10 being cut off. So I still have some concerns about this. I'm just going to go through what I welcome. I mean, in the conditions, I know we discussed this at last committee about the temporary surface water drainage. I think that really is important. If this application is implemented, we have had significant impacts on surrounding properties from the work at Weaver's Chase, and I can't see anything be different down there, so that is important to be looked at. It's interesting to note Yorkshire Water's comments about the drainage into the existing surface water drainage, which seems absolutely the appropriate thing to do rather than relying on circuitways due to topology. It's not a criticism again for us, it's Yorkshire Water, because actually over the summer we've had flooding in Milnes Bridge, which we've never in places we've never had before, from Market Street from north to south, and the connection we've made is this is where the water from that part of, that's where the water is going to be draining in, and they seem to have had ongoing problems over the years with that. So I think again it's probably acceptable for the site, and we'll keep the site well drained. If there's any possibility of getting Yorkshire Water to look at what the impact is of all that water going in to the drainage on the northern side of Goker down Dale Street, that would be interesting. Be interesting again to see what happens with when the other application comes back. It is, I think, one of the key points of the committee is we've recognised the biodiversity value, but it's going to have to be met off-site. And given that this application is right on the edge of the Longwood Conservation Area, I know elsewhere within applications there's actually been a change of layout, particularly looking at the stuff off Cartop Lane in Goker, reduction in the density, and that has actually minimised the impact, biodiversity impact. It's actually broken it up a bit. There doesn't seem to be an opportunity to do that here. I think if they had looked at that within the 27 application, actually reduced the impact over the number of dwellings over the whole, the biodiversity, some of the biodiversity could have been addressed within the site. It's of no
again, benefiting that part of the Gurkha for it not to for it to be met off-site. I suppose the final point, again, we've made this before about the impact on of development in the overall settlement. This site is viewable, and it was interesting your photograph from the northern part. It's viewable from most of Longwood Edge, from Lamhall Road, from Longwood Edge Road. We can see the site. Do you want to just you got those photos? That one. Yeah, so the green that you can see at the moment, most of that is now developed, and it has had a significant impact on the character, the viewable character, the amenity character of Gurkha from elsewhere. So I still have concerns about, I appreciate the work that's been done to mitigate some of the impact, but concerns about the application. Thank you.
Right, members, somebody prepared to move a motion? I'll move it. You'll move it?
Yeah, happy to move the
Councillor
opposite
Hurley.
recommendation.
And you'll
yeah.
second it? Yeah. Councillor Sokol. All those in favour, please show.
9, 4.
Against?
3 against.
That's it.
Application's approved.
Page 131. The Sun. 137 Highgate Lane, Lepton.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Neil Bearcroft. I've presented this and I've acted as case officer on this application. The application looks to retain a seating area and equipped play area associated with the Sun Public House in Lepton, and was deferred from the November committee meeting to see if the applicant could address the concerns raised. In terms of a brief refresh of the site, the pub's outlined in blue. This is orientated south to north, so that's to the south, and the site is outlined in red. That's what the site looks like at the moment. There's a fence along the one side, there's a crazy golf course at one end, seating area, that's the rear of a shop, and then that's some equipped play area that's at a higher level, that's a residential property there. The main entrance is in the corner. Since the previous application, the applicant has proposed a number of amendments and provided some further information. So in terms of what's proposed, the applicant has proposed a 2-metre high close bordered acoustic fence to be located along this boundary. Along here there'd be a small buffer zone, but it would be to an acoustic specification that would be specifically designed. A change in proposed hours, going back to what were allowed on a temporary permission, so there'd be 9 AM to 8 PM any day of the week. An agreement not to implement an extension that was previously approved at the pub in this area by agreeing to sign a unilateral undertaking. The submission of noise logs, which the applicant has undertaken over the period of the temporary permission, which has recorded noise levels every hour and the number of people using the garden. And the submission of a petition with 237 signatures, which has been carried out via change.org. The additional information has been considered by planning officers and environmental health officers, and I'd also draw members to the update which sets out that the applicant is proposing that acoustic specification fence. And that's been reviewed by environmental health as well. So whilst the additional mitigation measures proposed and there's a reduction in hours, and the highways reason has now been overcome by removing the proposal for the extension, there remains concerns that the proposal will have a detrimental impact to residential amenity to the properties to the rear of the site. The 2-metre fence, whilst better than existing, is not considered to provide sufficient impact from a harmful impact from occurring, given the higher level play equipment that is in part of the site. Environmental services do not consider that significant weight can be afforded to the noise logs, as they do not give noise levels over a continuous period and they only give a snapshot. They have also advised in the update that ideally a buffer should be provided and that the fence should be higher, possibly up to around 3 metres high, and encompass the whole of the site to provide sufficient mitigation. Given these concerns, the application is recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
We have a number of speakers for this one. We have Melvin Morrell.
Good afternoon, Chair, Council Members. Basically, I live next door to this site. I moved in 1996, some 24 years ago, and the area was nice and quiet and peaceful at the time. Since then, things have changed. Since the building of the play area, which on paper looks brilliant, I don't disagree with that area, it looks absolutely fantastic. In reality, to me and my immediate neighbours, it's a nightmare. We can have children streaming for hours and hours at a time, as they said, 7 days a week, plus their adults getting excited playing golf, and this causes severe stress and is impacting on my well-being, in the fact that I can't use my garden to relax because of the noise from the area. I believe there is a quote in legal spiel, basically, that I am entitled to a quiet enjoyment of my garden and property, which this prevents. I can't sit out in my garden and enjoy myself. It is impacting my quality of life and is causing me stress. Reference to the fence that they wish to put up, there is already an existing boundary fence there that belongs to my property and my neighbour. They stapled bamboo to this and also nailed electrical wiring to this, causing damage. I cannot access this fence to maintain it, as my documents, I can't remember, the housing documents allow me to. It is set down that I have got legal access to that fence from that property to maintain and upkeep it. If they build a new fence there, is that fence going to be a new boundary fence, or am I going to be able to still access the back of my boundary fence through this fence to maintain it? I don't think I can. So therefore, I don't know how it's going to work. So basically, all I can say is I object to this because it is upsetting myself and my wife and ruining our
30 seconds.
enjoyment. That is all. Thank you.
Can I just check, Amanda, are you wishing to speak?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so it's Amanda Elwood, is that right? Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I live in the behind the park area, and I feel that this park and garden should not be allowed to remain because of the noise and disturbance to our privacy of our garden. The people who are in favour of this, some of which don't even live in the direct area, are not taking into account that although the landlords are supporting the community with charity events, they are still a business making money out of the local residents. The landlords lied to the community and to Kirklees Council, putting in an original planning application for a car park to reduce congestion around the area. However, they have increased this by creating the park and garden there, so have not reduced the congestion at all. I understand that the landlords feel that we are complaining about the pub being there. I'm aware that it's been there over 300 years or so. However, this is not the case. I'm complaining about the constant noise throughout the weekend, during the day, evenings, and during school holidays on most days. This is causing disruption and stress and quality of life to how we have our to our home and how we use our garden. As I understand it, the landlords are suggesting that they put up a buffer fence to alleviate or stop the noise from the play park. However, this will not stop the noise. I should have access to my fences for maintenance and repair, and I would like to know how I can do this now that there has been a willow fence fastened to my boundary fence and my access has been blocked. I would like to be able to maintain my fences and trees to the back of my property, which I cannot do. I bought my house over 20 years ago because of the secluded garden, and we've built up the wildlife between myself and Mr. Morell because we enjoy the wildlife in our secluded garden. And we now have to put up with the noise on the screaming and shouting of the children for hours, the loud volume of conversation, and more importantly, the constant swearing and singing of drinkers in the garden. Why should we have to suffer this and ruin the quality of our evenings and weekends? They have placed a climbing frame so close to my garden fence after cutting back the trees that the children are looking over and shouting things, so we have no privacy whatsoever now. This is all very frustrating as we are trying to relax in our own garden. In my opinion, they have shown a blatant disregard for the planning regulations and ignoring council rules and the direct neighbours by destroying the peace and quality we have in our gardens. Some of my worries are that if the park and garden is to be remained, what will be next? Holding weddings, they already have children's pies. They have live bands, but if they move them outside, we can hear the live bands from inside the pub anyway, going on till early hours of the morning.
The time is up, thank you.
Thank you very much for listening.
Do we have Gareth Davis?
Afternoon. As introduced, my name's Gareth Davis. I'm a local businessman in Huddersfield. I'm also the Director and Vice Chair of the Huddersfield Town Centre Partnership. So I've heard the objections here, and I do understand, as with the Town Centre regeneration, that not everyone can agree on most subjects, and that's probably something you're very familiar with here in this room. I'm here to support the application. I'm a resident of Lepton and have been for 3 years now. A number of reasons why I support this. Before the land was developed, it was unsightly garages in a state of disrepair, actually unsafe in many cases. The site's now not only clean, but attractive and very useful to the community. It's a great feature for families, and certainly supported by the community in general, although, I understand the objections. The pubs control this in a great manner. I know it was mentioned that it was from 9 o'clock, but I believe it's from 12 p.m. noon until sort of 8 p.m. And I visited this venue many times. I'm not actually a big drinker, but I'm a big family man. I've got 2 young children, and they absolutely love to go there. It's gated, so it's safe. And in my experience, I know that we hear about actually it being quite loud and rowdy and swearing and kids looking over walls. The kids can't see over the walls. In my experience, I've never heard any swearing there. It's a good community. It's a nice pub. And I wouldn't take my kids there if they were in that environment, because I have my choice not to place my kids there, and I wouldn't do that. So certainly, in general, and I'm surprised that there aren't more people supporting it, but what I can offer is, my actual support from the community, that this is an excellent sort of venue. I could go on about central government budget cuts and local authorities and everything else that we're all very aware of, but what we see here is a prime case of private investment into a local community.
30 seconds.
And I can't say that, I'm staggered that we're here, to be honest with you. It's a fantastic asset to our village and community. And if this wasn't a garden and a play area as it is now, which is an excellent venue, what would it be? It's summer use, it's daytime usage. Would it be garages with noisy cars, with doors slamming at 10 p.m? I don't think we'd ever win really with some of these objections. So,
Time is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have Donna Brayshaw.
Hello everyone. Chair, I've spoken to an acoustic barrier fencing company that deals with noise from railways, theme parks and other commercial premises. They have advised me that if we put up one of these acoustic barrier fences, this will reduce the noise from anywhere between 50 and 75%. Also, I would like to address the issue of alleged noise in the garden. You should all have some sheets in front of you, garden monitoring sheets and complaint sheets. I would like to draw your attention to these sheets on August the 16th. As you can see from our garden logs, it clearly states on that date the garden was closed due to heavy rain. But on the diary sheets for the same day, it says people playing golf and excessive noise. The whole area is covered by CCTV and these are lies which we can prove, along with the lies about loud music being played in the garden. The garden does not and has never had music played in there. Also, the lies that the garden is open beyond 8 p.m, that was agreed. Again, this can be proven as a lie. As can the accusations that the garden and the pub are open into the early hours. My pub is closed and locked by 11:30 Sunday to Thursday and 12 p.m. Friday and Saturday. How these people think it is okay to tell complete and utter lies is beyond me. I have been a landlady in Huddersfield for 20 years and this is out and out defamation of my character. I would invite any committee member, councillor, planner or anyone else to come and see how my business is run. They will then see that this is a personal vendetta from a selected couple of people. From that of lying is okay, well it's not. The garden is wanted by our village, 292 people signed an online petition to save it. Our Facebook online poll had 710 votes. I hope the committee sees this and does the right thing for the whole of our village and votes to pass our garden. Thank you.
Councillor Ola.
Thank you, Chair. I think this has been to committee a few times and I think it's the third time. Is this gentleman? What is he wanting? No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not gonna. Yeah, it's come to committee a couple of times for deferral and various different amendments and things like that. And for me, it's a really, really difficult choice because there's a balance between, and it's a fine balance between the investment that's gone in there. And absolutely no doubt about that. Some of the play equipment that I've seen is top spec stuff. Totally understand and get young children using that and how well integrated the pub are with the community in terms of some of the events that they're doing for charity. I accept all that and I fully get all that. It's, for me, the position and the location. It's another one where it's really dividing the community. And unfortunately, it's not our role. We're not a court. We can't prove who's innocent or who's guilty. That would be a private legal matter for people to take up. But being a father of two, I can tell you right now, when I take my children to the playground, there is noise in the playground. That's what playgrounds are designed to do, to be noisy and have fun. I totally understand the concept that the applicants have come from, because what they've tried to do with the library and various other things, they've tried to bring it all together and achieve something which is really good and special. But unfortunately, I think on this occasion, I will have to go with the officer's recommendation, sadly. Thank you.
Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, on looking and going on the last site visit, this particular play area has a little bit of quite a lot going on with it. It was first given previous permission in 2018 as a temporary permission, which was granted for 6 months to assess the impact on residential amenity and the development of it. Anyway, it expired on the 17th of May 2019 and the current application was submitted on the 4th of July. Now, it's an awkward situation, this as far as I'm concerned, because, okay, it's part and parcel of the public house, which at one time of the day was the centre of the village,
and they are trying to look after the kids that go into the pub and the parents by putting out this little garden at the back. But having said all that, it's very, very close on to residential amenities, i.e. the people who live around. So it was then decided on the 7th of November that we would defer it for consideration to allow opportunity for officers to work with the applicant and explore further mitigation measures. Now, I asked a question to the officer, if it hasn't already been asked. It's a bit hard hearing it back here, you know, so I don't know everything that's going on down there. Have we had meetings with the landlord or landlady and the local people to try to see a way around this? And have we done, what have we come up with since the 7th of November?
Through you, Chair, I've met with the landlady and discussed the issues that were raised at the committee. I've not met with the local residents, but the mitigation measures that were put forward by the applicant were then reconsulted with the local residents, and we had some objections to the additional information that was put forward. Let me just check on the exact number. There were 17 in support and 3 in objection, and I believe the 3 in objection, I think 2 of those people are the people who are here today and they live next to the site. We do also have Richard Hume here from Environmental Health, who's assessed the application, and his comments are contained within the report. So Richard could provide some further information about the impact in terms of residential amenity.
Well, sorry, considering its 2-year history, we haven't really come up with anything yet upon it, have we? Not concrete, to say either yes or no. Or have we? It's been going on for 2 years, this, nearly enough.
Well, the measures that were put forward haven't been acceptable to planning officers. It started out with the development was carried out without planning permission. It was unlawful. Then the first application came in to try and regularise that. Members granted a temporary permission to assess that impact, which then expired, and this application's come in. Then it was deferred. We've asked and gone through possible mitigation measures with the applicant. They've proposed certain things. It's not everything that we suggested to them, but it's certain things, but we don't feel it's sufficient.
Thank you for that. So actually, today is decision day, either yea or nay. Am I right? Members, am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
Thank you.
Councillor Firth, I think at this stage as well, we want as much information as we can get, and I understand the environmental officer's here, and so I would like him to perhaps add to what's already been said.
Through you, Chair. I'm Richard Hume, Environmental Health Officer. Initially, when this application came in, one of my colleagues did the response, and we considered that the development was not appropriate for that location, basically because of the likely noisy activities that would be generated there and the close proximity of residential properties. We were of the opinion that that development would cause a loss of amenity to nearby residents. The provision of an acoustic barrier that's 2 metres high that's been proposed would produce a marginal improvement, largely because the noise sources are at a high level. So there'd be adults, tall adults, so they're almost 2 metres high, and also there's elevated play areas, so the children's voices would be around 2 metres high. So therefore a 2 metre high barrier would not stop the pathway from the noise source into the gardens, so therefore the barrier at 2 metres wouldn't be effective. A barrier of 3 metres high would be a little bit more effective, but once again we still think it wouldn't be sufficient to stop a loss of amenity, and also we feel that there is a potential for a statutory nuisance if the development was allowed to go ahead. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You wish to speak, Councillor Sokol?
Yeah. Chair, I'm actually opposite my colleague, whatever said, yeah. I think in the past we deferred this application, I think twice before we given First time we given a temporary planning permission to see how, then second time we see how we go. I think if we turn down this application, it's my view, yeah, I think we lose a lot of community benefits. I know the children always make noises there, but sometimes you have the patient who isn't there. I got a sympathy with the residents who are facing this one, but again, it's a community benefit, like a Kirklees Council got computer there, then provide library facility for the local residents who are coming around there. I think if we put some more condition on there, condition like timing, yeah, open a bit late, yeah, and close opening hour about 7, 8 o'clock, something like that. When all the residents at home, yeah, that's the way I think I move to accept the application. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. I've got more questions than answers, as usual. Just one question is, we seem to get an impression from officers that there was a suite of proposals available or suggested from them that would have made this application acceptable. And I think that's probably something that the applicant needs to go away and think about, because if it's refused today, I am, through you, Chair, just ask, and a fresh application would have to fit with that, with those proposals. That's just one point. The other point I'd like to make is, were there any actual enforcement issues during this last 6-month period? Was anybody called to a noise? Were the police called, or any of those kinds of incidents called in an enforcement way? And the last comment I'd make, or last question I'd ask is, if we refuse today, and this reverts to a use if this site needs to be cleared of play equipment, what is permissible to the pub? What kind of activity is permissible for the pub to do outside? Because I'd hate for the residents to think that it would be completely silent in that patch of land if that were not to be the case. Thank you.
Well, we've had a mover to support the application. I've had nothing else so far. Councillor Homewood.
Yeah, Chair, I was just going to add to this that, I mean, as councillors, we're probably aware that one of the issues that gets raised the most with us is issues for residents in terms of noise disruption. It's a big issue for people. And I've seen plenty of times how it can really impact people, people's mental health as well. And so I understand all the points that have been made about the benefit of the site. No doubt it's been made to be family friendly and to be a great place for socialising and stuff. I'm not saying that anybody's done anything, to try and actually make the lives of the residents nearby, damage the lives of residents nearby or anything like that. But I just feel that, when we've got this information from the residents and from environmental health telling us that this isn't really appropriate in this area, I don't really see how we can determine that, or it's okay because it's for the community benefit. I think we have to take account of those people that are living closest, who are being affected by it. So whilst, like I say, I have sympathy for the applicants, I just can't support it with the information that we've got at this time. So, going different to my colleague, I'd move that we refuse it as the officer's recommendation.
In officer's recommendation. Councillor Marchington wishes to.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Lawson asked 2 or 3 questions. Is it possible to have a response to those?
Please. Through you, Chair, in terms of complaints in relation to enforcement, there's an ongoing enforcement case that was opened when the player was first opened. I think there's been correspondence since the temporary permission, but I don't know for sure. But this application has been submitted to seek to regularise that. There has been correspondence with Environmental Health directly, where the local residents who've been most impacted have contacted environmental environmental health about a potential statutory nuisance, and then they've been given sheets to record the nuisance levels, but environmental services themselves haven't been to the site at a particular point where it's been an issue, but there is an ongoing process through environmental health. And what was in terms of the mitigation, there's different things that could be carried out on the site, which could be making the areas smaller, putting up a different height of fence, a larger buffer zone, taking the play equipment away. It could be a number of things, depending on what the applicant feels is acceptable.
Yes, one of the senior officers would like to come in as well now.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll keep mine brief. We are going round here. It is difficult. There are further mitigations that could have been proposed, but that's not what's before you today. It's the application and the scheme that's been proposed. It's a balanced decision. You've heard that we could potentially create a nuisance if we were to grant it. That is a consideration. We don't want to create a situation perhaps where one part of the council thinks it's okay and another element has an obligation to deal with an issue. That's not good planning. But it's well liked in the community, but it's causing an issue for those people who live there. So on the face of what you've got in front of you, our recommendation is this isn't the right scheme for you to support. That's a difficult decision, I accept. Is there a scheme to be had here? Perhaps, but it's not the one that you've got here now. And this is the consequences of dealing with a retrospective application where you have square peg, round hole, and you're trying to ameliorate the issues through planning conditions and you can't quite get there. So that's probably where we're up to today.
It's hard to bring the matters to a head now, but I'll have Councillor Davies, because otherwise we're going on and on here, and it's getting monotonous.
I'm going to second the motion that we accept the officer's recommendation. I do think we have to take absolute notice of the residents.
That has been, so that's officer's recommendation is proposed and seconded. But Councillor McGuinn, I'll still give you a chance to speak finally. I hope very briefly.
I am councillor for the area and I've been really involved in this. You've heard all sorts about the Sun does very good work in the community. I'm very supportive of them. But as I mentioned at the beginning, I did go around and talk to the residents and ask them what they... Sorry, and I did say, we have to go with what the environmental services said. And I promised Mr Morell that it had to depend on what the environmental services said. And if they came down against it, then I couldn't support it. And I'm really heavy heart saying that. But I'm not going to vote for it. I'm for the application. I'm not going to vote again. I'll have to abstain because I'm really torn here. But I did say I wouldn't support it. And I kept my promise if that's what environmental services recommended.
Well, thank you, Councillor McGinn. Now I'll put the office, it's been moved and seconded as the officer's recommendation. So all those in favour, please show. Against?
Three against.
Abstentions?
The application's refused.
Page 149, land at 172 Gilroyd Lane, Linthwaite. Now this part of this could come into private sitting, so we'll see how it progresses or otherwise. requested a 5-minute comfort break, which I'll grant. Thank you.
I kept my word. All right.
Thank you.
Not today.
Thank you, Chair. Victor Grayson
I don't
again,
think I'll come
Majors and
into
Minerals
that.
team. This is an application for full planning permission for a residential development of 18 units. This is a site that's 0.77 hectares in size at land at 172 Gilroyd Lane. This is the location plan, and this is an aerial view of the site. The site has a limited street frontage between 168 and 170 Gilroyd Lane, behind which the site slopes downhill towards the west from approximately 202 metres above ordnance datum above the site entrance to approximately 180 metres at the site's westernmost point. The site was previously in agricultural use, and in planning terms, this is a previously undeveloped greenfield site. Surrounding uses are residential with additional greenfield land to the south. The site is within the Linthwaite Conservation Area.
Linfield.
It's this part of the conservation here. And in the Linthwaite Conservation Area Character Appraisal, which this is an extract from, the site, which is annotated B here, is identified as land that traditionally would have enhanced the setting of the formal house, Rock House, to the north. Just to explain these numbers 5 and 6 in this plan from the Conservation Area Character Appraisal identify modern housing development and Colne Valley High School, which are not sympathetic to the character of Linthwaite. The site is, however, allocated for residential development in the local plan. The current application site comprises 0.77 hectares, so it's roughly the north third of the allocated site, which is 2.07 hectares in size. Allocation is identified as HS126, and it has a site capacity of 65 dwellings indicatively. So because of the site allocation, the principle of residential development at this site is considered acceptable, and members will be aware that outline planning permission has been previously granted for residential development at this site. In terms of drainage, just as background information, again, this is the site here. Combined public sewers run across the site, meeting with a junction almost at the centre of the site. No public rights of way cross the application site. However, a public footpath runs along the north edge of the site, along an east-west alignment. And this is a view down the public footpath which members walked down this morning. No tree preservation orders protect trees on the site. However, TPOs do protect trees outside the site to the northwest. This is a view from an adjacent dwelling on the east edge of the site, provided by the resident of that dwelling, to illustrate how the site falls away from those adjacent residential properties towards the bottom of the valley. Gilroyd Lane is a fairly busy road, especially at the start and the end of the school day. Again, this is a photograph provided by a local resident to illustrate congestion on Gilroyd Lane. Gilroyd Lane is subject to a 30-mile-an-hour speed restriction. So in terms of what's proposed, this is the proposed site layout. 18 dwellings are proposed or to be arranged around a serpentine estate road extending from the site entrance down towards the southwest corner of the site. The applicant has stated that vehicular access from Hillside View to the north is not possible due to a ransom strip. Now, this isn't necessarily accepted because obviously ransom strips can be purchased, but Hillside View isn't an appropriate access in any case due to its narrowness, lack of central line markings, heavy parking, including parking on pavements, and its gradients. So this black and white version might more clearly show that at the end of the Serpentine Road, a private drive is proposed beneath which a drainage attenuation tank would be built. 14 detached and 4 semi-detached dwellings are proposed. All of them would be 3-bedroom units. This is street scene BB. This is, you can see from the legend, oops. that this is what residents to the east would look out onto, albeit from an elevated position. This is street scene AA, looking towards the hillside, looking from the west. And this illustrates part of what would be seen from the opposite side of the valley. Site sections illustrate the challenging topography of the site. Levelling would be necessary to accommodate the development and acceptable road gradients. However, no material is to be imported to achieve this. An amended layout was submitted 2 days ago. This changes the area I'm highlighting here next to units 1 and 2. And that's an extract from that part of the latest drawing. What the applicants have done here is move units 1 and 2 approximately 3 metres westwards to allow for a movement of this spur, or an extension to the proposed estate road, westwards, so it better connects to the rest of the allocated site to the south. Just to explain, the site allocation steps back behind 174 Gilroyd Lane and its rear lane, and so the spur, I don't know if you can see that, members, I'll zoom in again, would now better connect with the remaining allocated land. Further to this drawing that came in 2 days ago, this morning we've had another drawing which was submitted by the applicant in an attempt to address outstanding concerns, highways related concerns with this proposed spur, and it basically involves the reintroduction of a pavement, a footway along the east side of that spur as far as the site boundary. These amendments made in the last few days would not normally require public reconsultation. 6 house types are proposed. 2 and 3 storey elevations are proposed to dwellings. Of note, 3-storey dwellings already exist nearby in Hillside View and elsewhere in Linthwaite, although 2 storeys do predominate in Linthwaite. Stone walls and slate roofs are proposed by the applicant. These would need to be natural slate and stone. Small areas of timber cladding are proposed to some elevations. This is an inferior material, but its proposed use is confined to small areas above front doors. In terms of impacts on heritage assets, given the role of this land in enhancing the setting of the unlisted rock house to the north, and given that the settlement would be expanded beyond its historic edges into the rural surroundings that help define the conservation area, harm would be caused. This harm, however, is considered to be less than substantial, given the surrounding 20th century development that already exists and the appropriate design and materials proposed by the applicant. NPPF paragraph 193 states that great weight should be given to the conservation of heritage assets. Paragraph 194 states that any harm to the significance of a designated heritage asset should require clear and convincing justification. And paragraph 196 states that less than substantial harm should be weighed against the public benefits of development. In this case, the provision of much needed housing carries significant weight and, in officers' view, outweighs the less than substantial harm that the proposed development would cause. This 18-unit development would normally be required to provide 4 affordable housing units, 2 social affordable rent and 2 intermediate. The applicant has argued, however, that largely due to development costs, including abnormal costs relating to retaining walls and sewer diversion, the earlier 17-unit scheme, the applicant did amend the scheme during the life of the application, could not provide affordable housing or other planning obligations. And the applicant submitted financial viability evidence to support this. The council's consultant, Avison Young, reviewed this evidence and concluded that 1 social rent unit of the 17-unit scheme could in fact be provided. Following negotiation and the amendment of the scheme to provide 18 units, the applicant has agreed to accept a lower profit and provide 3 affordable housing units in the form of discounted market sale units, where freeholds would be sold at 80% of market value. This still does not comply with the headline planning policy requirement, but given the applicant's viability evidence, further considered in an accompanying confidential paper to accompany the committee report, it is recommended that this offer be accepted. Unit sizes would comply with the government's nationally prescribed space standards. Drainage matters have been resolved. The LLFA have yesterday afternoon confirmed that they are happy to proceed with the proposed drainage strategy subject to conditions. Infiltration is not appropriate at the site and no suitable nearby watercourses can be used. Therefore, it is accepted that surface water from the site can be disposed of via the combined public sewer beneath the site, once attenuated to a 5 litres per second flow. Yorkshire Water have agreed to this and to the proposed sewer diversion. As mentioned, the LLFA are satisfied with the proposals, and the conditions recommended include a condition addressing what would happen in the event of a suspected culvert being discovered during site excavation. Just to clarify as well, the proposals and the LLFA's assessment of those proposals do account for more intense rainfall events that are predicted to happen in the light of climate change. Highways matters have also been satisfactorily addressed during the life of the application. Acceptable sightlines are proposed at the site entrance, and the local road network has capacity for the predicted vehicle movements, which the applicant has put at 9 additional movements in the AM peak and 9 additional movements in the PM peak. Adequate on-site parking is proposed. The proposed spur to land to the south has, as mentioned previously, been recently amended to address most earlier concerns. However, some further amendments would be required, and it is recommended that this matter be delegated to officers to resolve with the applicant. In terms of neighbour amenity, page 5 of the committee update includes figures in metres confirming adequate spacing between existing and proposed dwellings. Distances involving proposed units 1 and 2 have in fact increased since then with the recent amendments. The concerns of residents are understandable. These residents currently look out onto a greenfield site and wider views of the Colne Valley. However, private views are not protected under planning. An adequate outlook would be maintained for the residents of the nearest dwellings at 164 to 172 Gilroyd Lane. Trees, ecological and other planning matters have been adequately addressed. And while a total of 47 representations, all objections have been received in response to the Council's consultation and reconsultation. And while the proposed development certainly has shortcomings in relation to affordable housing, lack of open space contribution, only 3-bed units being proposed and the scheme's low density, these are considered justified, and approval of planning permission subject to a Section 106 agreement and conditions is recommended. Thank you.
We have a number of speakers for this one. We have Caroline Chapman.
I am Caroline Chapman. We live at 168A and 168B Gilroyd Lane in the conservation area, which we look down onto the plot of land. We are keen to ensure that the heritage and conservation of this is enhanced for future generations and not left forgotten in amongst the need for more housing stock. We are also concerned about road safety, drainage and flooding. Gilroyd Lane is a very busy road, a bus route and a school route for Ardron and Colne Valley High School, just 100 yards down the road. It's a nightmare pulling on and off your own drive, especially at busy times. Residents park their cars on both sides of the road, so cars travelling up and down the road and generate above the 30 miles per hour limit have to stop to take it in turns to stake through. Pick up and drop off school times is chaotic. My daughter has almost been knocked down at home time as the only line of sight she has to cross is between parked cars. A number of serious road accidents have already occurred over the past few years close to the proposed access. In the original outline planning application council meeting 2016, it was recognised by the Highways Department that the access was borderline. This is worrying. If planning is granted, there will be an increased volume of traffic joining Gilroyd Lane, a potential 36 cars 2 per house to use this access, which could rise to 120 plus cars when a further 40 plus houses are built at some time.
with access from the same onto and off the plot. Access and safety must be carefully considered. The land around Gilroyd Lane is extremely steep and excess water cascades down the roads into whatever drain provision is in place. Removal of trees and vegetation along with the building of 80 to 60 plus houses will only increase the chance of flooding. We have both suffered floods in our garages, my kitchen where excess surface water from Gilroyd Lane has cascaded down our drives due to drain overload. Against a changing climate, what provision is in place for drainage and excess water onto and off the site? Finally, the light and noise pollution on this estate will be increased in what is a quiet and dark area at night. From the Gilroyd Lane access, these new houses will dominate the skyline with street lights, car lights and cars revving up and down the steep road. This will not be a pleasant addition to what is a tranquil conservation area. The bats which roost in my roof area will be disoriented at a risk of dying with the change of environment. Is the height of the units on the highest tier acceptable regarding our privacy, and what provisions will be in place for the bats once their roosting and feeding places are removed? Has a bat service been completed? Thank you.
Robert Bamford.
Mr. Chairman, I'll start by saying this planning application is simply not ready to be considered by the Planning Committee at this time. There are far too many unknowns, and many of those unknowns are critical to the viability and sustainability of the site. I believe it's not unreasonable to ask that all these critical issues be resolved before you agree to planning permission, not after. What I'd like to do is just draw your attention to 4 of those critical issues. The first one is flooding and viability of the excess flood route. The developer's plans indicate the excess flood route is through the gardens of plot 12 and between plots 15 and 16. Planners say it should be between plots 15 and 16. Both options are fine for the new development, but what about the people who live on ridgeways downstream of the site, who will suddenly have excess flood flows directed into the gardens of their homes and possibly actually into their homes? No mention of that is made in the application. National policies for sustainable urban drainage systems require planners and developers to ensure that access flows are discharged overland if necessary to a suitable disposal point, but the current planning application ignores this requirement. It's important to note that on steep hill sites such as this, in this location, excess flows will not collect in ponds. There will be a high dynamic flow down the hill. Strict drainage conditions were attached to the outline planning permission granted in 2016. We're alarmed that this fundamental safety requirement regarding excess or exceedance flows has now been dropped. Second point, capacity of the drainage systems to service the full local plan site of 65 houses. There's mention about the extension of the site for highways, but nothing about the highway drainage implications of that further site. How is that site going to be drained? Because as far as I can see, it has to come through that bottom line. I foresee legal problems with the stormwater attenuation tank under a private drive. Perhaps the most important is it forms a ransom strip. So developers of the adjacent site cannot access the foul and surface water drainage systems that exist to service the smaller site. Viability of the vehicular entry onto Gilroyd Lane. It's already been mentioned that it's very doubtful. What happens with 65 houses? It said it would be updated in the for the committee here, but as far as I can see, it hasn't been.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sonia Zoref.
Hi, my name's Sonia Zoref, and I think it's probable to say that I'm probably the most affected because I live at 172 which is directly at the side of the entrance. I've been accused of being a NIMBY objector, that it's personal and that can't be taken into consideration, but I absolutely disagree with that. I moved into that property a few years ago because I have a disabled daughter that needs to, she's mental and physical disabilities, and she needs to live in a, you know, comfortable environment, and that's why we chose that area. Now that's been taken from us. So not only that, but we lose to stand the views. The new properties are going to be sold on the stands that they've got these beautiful views. Well, yes, they will have, because they'll have taken ours. Nice one. That also would be incorporated into the value of the property, so that has a knock-on effect that way. Noise, dirt, pollution, all the added stress that we're going to suffer for the next 3 years. I'm directly at the side of that, so don't tell me that's not going to affect anybody's health. But besides my daughter, who suffers from mental health problems and epilepsy. But going on to the community impact, there are lots of issues that have not really been dealt with in the report. So it's the heritage and the conservation of the village, and they're saying that they're going to build the properties to fit in, but we all disagree on that. The wildlife, the bats, the birds and the deers, well, they said that they're going to make provisions. Are they going to make provisions? I don't think they will. The rock is actually built on springs, and there is a lot of springs around the area. The field further up actually lost a horse 3 years ago inside the spring that they managed to rescue after several hours. That's not been brought up. Rainwater and floodwater, all the plans are insignificant. Access to the area, most importantly, I think safety, and again it's been raised about the volume of traffic. They've allocated one car per house to the 17-18 plot, which I think is really unrealistic, because given that the 4-bedroom, 3-floored houses, most of them, and unrealistically unaffordable housing, you're going to be looking at 2 and 3 cars. And there was little mention and very low profile about the proposal of the extended plot. So a lot of the residents don't realise that these 17 houses are actually going to be 62. Anything else?
Thank you. Time's up.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
We've got Councillor Rob Walker. You'll have 5 minutes.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm Rob Walker, Ward Councillor, one of the Ward Councillors for the Combe Valley. With this site, I assume that housing development is going to take place on the site, given its designation in the local plan. I would also like to see, a personal preference would be that the development takes place by a local builder who understands the local community. However, I do think that this is a very difficult site to develop. I think that's always been the case. It was discussed at some length back in 2016 when outline planning permission was granted. The complicating factor, I think, when judging this application is that we have to judge it in its own right, but we must also recognise that it is linked to the probable further development of the site to the south, bringing up the future likely total development up to 65 houses. So looking at the site, my main concerns, I have a number, but the main ones are the access from Gilroyd Lane. That has always been considered to be difficult, and both because of the narrowness of the entrance and the potential speed of traffic and the volume of traffic and parked cars along Gilroyd Lane. I think the committee members need to think about whether or not in the longer term that access is going to be sufficient for the further development of the site. My second concern is about the drainage of the site. I'm well aware that below the site on the Ridgeways area and on Waingate, which is a road that runs off Causeway side, there has always been problems in terms of water runoff. I carry out estate inspections with K&H housing officers on a fairly regular basis, and one of the problems is that water runs off that site and through the gardens of the houses down there. There is also problems in terms of water running right down onto Waingate, and in fact our highways team over recent months have carried out some work to try and deal with some of that problem. So again, I just wonder if we've got sufficient detail about how that is going to be dealt with. I think the points made by Mr Bamforth in terms of whether the attenuation tank that's proposed on this site will also have to cope with the water that would run off the further development of the further 40-odd houses. That would be an interesting point that I would like officers perhaps to tell us a little bit more about. So, a difficult site. I think in the long term it should be developed, but I think at this stage we need to get the details correct for the benefit of the people who will be moving into those houses, but also for the benefit of current residents who live either side of the proposed site. Okay, thank you.
Members. Councillor Uppel, Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Bellamy and Councillor...
Chair, I don't know if there's someone who's expecting to speak or...
What's your name, sir?
We'll take the applicant.
Yeah, okay.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Steve Byram, one or two members that were here last week with a different scheme. Probably know who I am. I'm the Managing Director of SP Homes, and we pride ourselves on delivering good quality houses built in the Colne Valley. We actually live, my family lives in the Colne Valley. We built houses for over 25 years in the Colne Valley. We don't really have any issues. Many of these people sat behind here who have concerns. I've been to see them, we've chatted to them over concerns, and we do recognise this site has got some challenges, but that's what the Colne Valley is about. We've built houses, over 300 houses, in challenging sites. We've never had any issues. I think that's really relevant. It's relevant that, you know, we will take this site on and develop it knowing it's a difficult site, and I think that's really important. We're all fully aware of that. We'll plan and work with relevant agencies, authorities, industry professionals, as we have done in the planning of this site, to come to a successful outcome and build on what we believe we've already got a good name. And we recognise the challenges on this site and concerns of local residents. We've got plans in place already for any overland flooding, as it's been mentioned. These plans are already in place, and we've done this previously on different sites, and we've worked with Paul Farndale, Head of Planning, or Head of Drainage in Kirklees, on many occasions, and I'm sure he could confirm we've actually had no issues ongoing for many of the developments that we've done. Individual concerns: we don't own the land adjacent to our site. There's other options to come into this access. This access was designed for our site. The adjacent site is not in our ownership, it's in many different people's ownership. It may never even come to fruition. I think that's really important, and that needs to be made clear. Now, if there's any questions, I know it's not quite, if any questions, I'm more than happy to take any questions, individual questions from any members on that. All right, thank you.
Members, can I just get it now? I've got down, I only managed to get a couple down there, so forgive me if I have to repeat and let me know again. I've got Councillor Uppel, Councillor Davies, was Councillor Marchington and Councillor Bellamy. Councillor Uppel.
Thank you, Chair. it's good to hear that we've got a local builder here who understands the geography of Colne Valley. I do just have a couple of concerns, though. I think, there's been a fair few points about the attenuation tank, and I am a little bit concerned about what's been raised here, so it'd be useful to hear from the officer on that. And also, I'm very, very concerned about the affordable homes. We do expect that we meet a requirement of 20% of units, and obviously we have had a report, and that is raising concerns around viability. But we're also looking at discount market sales rather than our preferred option around social or affordable rent or the 10-year split. So that, for me, is very, very concerning that we're not meeting the affordable homes limit. So.
We've pretty much covered my points. I raised at the site visit this morning. Well, I thought it was. So I was raising the site visit earlier this morning. My concerns, it is a difficult site, and the runoff of water, exactly as we've heard, I think, from Councillor Walker. And I'm really have a problem at this moment, not being an expert, of understanding whether we've really got a solution to that, and certainly a sustainable issue going forward. And that's a real worry. There are other issues which have been raised, certainly on the affordable housing, but that's the one I really want to focus on, because I think that certainly, as we've seen in our valley, Home Valley, has caused issues from developments.
Councillor Marchington.
Thank you, Chair. Got some serious concerns about the application as it stands. I think just general comments to the committee on access. Access to this particular development site was discussed in some detail at the outline stage. Highways officers did at that stage in 2016 say that the access was borderline, but at that stage members of the committee didn't take that up, and now we're coming back and recognising that access onto Gilroyd Lane is less than suitable, and it really is when we are, particularly in the Colne Valley and in other areas where the geography is difficult, the topology is difficult, when we talk about access to sites, particularly information from local members and those aware of it, needs to be taken seriously. We know there's one or two sites where we've perhaps not discussed in both the Colne Valley and the Home Valley. We've not looked at access as well as we might do, and now we come back, and as Councillor Walker has pointed out on a couple of occasions, there's an expectation because of access that sites will be developed. Drainage, again, because of the topology of the area, drainage is an issue. It might be possible to drain this site, but it's then the cumulative impact of that. We're discussing a meeting, an application at the last committee about issues on Manchester Road, which is lower down. Again, if we look at the whole area, you've got a huge area of land, sloping land to the east of the site, which are the playing fields of Colne Valley High School. And you've got, a site, there's a huge water catchment coming down there, which is filtering. And it's about looking at a holistic approach. And at some stage, we're going to have to review the drainage in a lot of areas to make sure that it's going to work as well as possible. There has been detail given, but the response from Kirklees as the lead local flood authority, I assume that the response you've given us, Victor, about that is, subsequently we're happy about the drainage on site with the attenuation. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I again still have some concerns about that. I don't know if we're going to discuss this in the public session or if there's a possibility to discuss it in private. As Councillor Ruppel says, I have got serious concerns about affordability. We are privy to some figures, and I don't know if we're permitted to discuss those in public or not. Chair. So, where do we have a discussion about affordability?
As you've noticed on the agenda, we have got the item at the end there to discuss any matters that might be of a private nature. Do you want to go into private session now, or do you want to wait till the end? Councillor
I think we need a discussion about we need a discussion about affordability. I've done some calculations on the figures that are in front of me, which are not in the public domain. So I'm not sure if it's what advice we're getting about to what extent I can.
We will need to go to private session.
Okay. Do you need a proposal moving then? Are you just going to do it?
I'll sanction that, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask the audience to.
The audience.
Right, thank you. We're back in public session now, and there's been a debate over the evidence that the developer has put in for the members to consider in terms of viability, and they were discussing the tenure of the affordable housing or the application of the affordable housing pot, shall we say, and that's what they're going to talk about now in public session.
So what we want to know is which option do you want? And then, are we agreeable to it? Councillor Bellamy, yes, one of these.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to particularly go into the affordable homes or anything like that. I've got, I wouldn't knock this builder, this developer at all. He's local, he knows the land. What he builds is usually good quality. But I have got some serious concerns with this site, to be honest. The sewerage system's already over capacity. There's known for flooding in that area. The highway stuff that's been mentioned, I completely agree with. Somebody mentioned a bat survey. Has there been a bat survey at all? Just wondering. I think with the land at the side as well, I think it needs looking at in a wider context, because do we know whether there is going to be an application for that other half or not? Is it just always going to end up staying greenfield, or will it actually ever come forward for more houses? And to be honest, I just think there's so many unanswered questions that, to be honest, I would actually propose deferral, just to get answers around this. Maybe if planning officers could, further investigate with the developer just to see if they can answer all these issues.
We'll come back to that later, Councillor Bellamy. If you are suggesting deferral, we need to know what grounds. But at the moment, we've got an officer's recommendation in front of us, and I think it's from the tenor of the debate when we're in private session, which we're going to go back to in public session. It's the affordable housing element of that recommendation, which was members wanted to talk about.
To come back, let's just about the affordability issue. Again, I'll express my concerns about the other bits of it. So, following the discussion, we understand the difficulty of developing the site. Perhaps, in future, we need to look at actually the impacts. There's going to be lots of sites like this. So the figures that the developer has put in front of us appear to, that seems to stack up. I think it's how that's implemented, and I think I would say in terms of providing affordable housing in the locality, there might be a better way of using the funding that's available. And whether we do that through deferral or whether we can condition that, I think I would like to say, and probably deferral might be the best way to look at that, to say, is there a way of securing a Section 106 agreement on the affordability that could be used to provide social housing or affordable housing on a different model, preferably in the locality. So I think set the figures around affordability that have been presented to us, but a different way of using, making affordable housing available.
I think Councillor Davis wants to.
Relatively similar comments, but certainly from the discussion, from my perspective, for me the focus has to be on social rent, and we need to look at options available to us to maximise that opportunity, whether it's on this site or elsewhere, which probably indicates that we need, I guess, a deferral for further discussion, but certainly I wouldn't be happy with what we have at the moment. I think the option of simply the 3 affordable houses doesn't meet the need in my view, so therefore there has to be further discussion on this.
Councillor Homewood.
Just to agree with my colleagues, really. I think from what I've heard, in terms of what options are available in terms of affordable homes, we've got different models potentially, and I think what Councillor Marchington's saying is interesting about how we're better served by using that contribution to actually develop more potentially socially rented homes in the locality, not on that site. But I think, as has been said, we don't really have enough information as to whether that's actually possible at this time, because if not, then my preference would be to have the maximum number of socially rentable homes on the site, whether that be one or more. So I think that's the bit that we need to understand, as to whether that option is available, whether that would deliver us potentially more affordable homes in the local area, and that's where I feel we don't quite have the information to make that decision right now. So yeah.
Just to clarify, so for members of the public and the applicants and viewing public out in the web, the reality of the viability, what we're hearing from the planning committee is the evidence that's been put forward is acceptable evidence, but the delivery of that needs reviewing. There are competing calls to either take up, if we take what 3 affordable housing generate as a cash sum and say that's the Section 106 pot, where that is spent, is that best spent as a lump sum going off-site and what options exist? Or is it better to see whether a socially rented model can be delivered, and do you get 1, do you get 2? How many does that get you? And then those are the 2 scenarios we're coming at. So we're accepting the envelope of money arrived from the viability, wrong language, but we're accepting the amount of money that the viability generates, and we're looking at the optimum solution for that, as opposed to not accepting that evidence and holding the policy as the starting point at 20%. So what we're being offered, let's look at those 2 scenarios, and that's what you're asking us to take away, to discuss with the applicant. We will bring back a recommendation of what is the best in our suggestion of those 2 scenarios, off-site or a socially rented model, whatever that leaves us a bit of change. Is that clear? That's on affordable housing. Members had discussions on drainage and other matters before we went into closed session.
Councillor Uppel.
Chair, I'll be very, very quick. I just want to be very clear. I'm very concerned about any sites where we're moving away from the 20%, and that has been set locally for our local plan. So, I want to be very clear on that, and I think we do need to just reassess. Particularly, I think for us, if we look at the research and the evidence use, the socially rented option needs to be looked at again, and particularly the numbers around that. Okay.
Where are we and what do we want?
Yeah, I think we are going to defer, but I think we need to set the parameters so that the applicant knows what we're looking for. Is it the case that we want to revisit the viability, as you've suggested, in the level of affordable housing delivery? So that's one element. The second element, where I think there's general consensus, is that when that pot is crystallised, how it is applied, and the offer in front of us now, discount market sale on site, the committee don't think that would be the best way to apply that pot of money, and to look how best we can achieve affordable housing, either off-site or on-site. Is that it? So essentially, it is viability you want to bring back.
Councillor Martin, are you prepared to move for that?
I empathise with Councillor Uppel's concerns about it, and I am for it's a difficult site, so we'll look at the evidence.
Right, okay.
It's the second option about alternative ways of using that.
Right, so it's not viability, it is the application of what the evidence we've seen and looked at, the pot of money, the envelope of money there, and how it is best applied.
Councillor Firth and then Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've got a dilemma here. Well, it isn't a big dilemma, but it's a case of affordable housing. Do we sell them straight away and call it a day, or do we rent them? Now, renting, I know it's a long, drawn-out job and it goes over a number of years, but that's where your money's going to be if you set a rent for affordable housing. You're going to get that rent every week. It's going to pay for itself, and at the end of 5, 6, 7, 8 years or whatever, those houses will be paid for. Then you can decide what you want to do then. Do you want to sell them on, or do you want to continue renting them? It's not an easy thing to decide, but I can tell you this. I used to rent televisions, and I made more out of television rental than selling them, because you can only sell them once. You can't get the money again. So if you rent it over a period of time, we used to be talking about 5 or 6 years, but at the end of the day, you got your money back. It covered your repairs, it covered your maintenance, it covered everything. And there is no reason why something like that shouldn't cover your affordable housing. It's as simple as, well, it isn't simple, but it's simplistic in thinking. And it's a case of sitting down, discussing it, because I've got to tell you now, rushing into things like this, we have a saying in Home Valley, there's no gain by rushing. And there isn't. Because when you've rushed things in, you find out a week or two later, it's just not right, and it's too late to go back on it. It's worth sitting down and thinking about this, and then coming back and making a decision. Thank you.
I'll be brief, Chair. I'm just going to second Councillor Marchington's motion for the second option, column B, to accept our pot that we've arrived at, and then the decision to come back to us is how that is actually apportioned and how we actually deal with that. Thank you.
Can I just for the sake of clarity, the rent option that we're talking about here is the rent option which is social rent or affordable rent set down in the MPPF. It's not private rent, it's a social rent. Okay. Yep.
I'm never going to get to the vote here. Councillor Davis and Councillor Bell.
Yeah, try and be very brief. To add to that, if we are deferring, do we need to stipulate some of the other issues we're concerned about as well? Because we've talked earlier on about issues that we're concerned around what drainage, etc. Or is this just sufficient to stipulate that one issue?
Yeah, I mean, this is just, I'm just talking about element 1 of the officer's recommendation. If members have got other issues that they want to have ventilated with the planning officer during this deferral, let us know what they are, so the applicant knows what they are.
Yes, Councillor Marchington.
Well, if we're looking at it, it's the access onto Gilroyd Lane and whether it is actually going to be sustainable, whether we can do anything about, and again, this issue about the further on the site, and then actually the drainage off the site. I think some of those, we've had responses about those. Some of us are not happy with them. That debate on those issues will no doubt come back when when the application comes back to committee in due time.
So in effect now, we've got a move and a second for deferral, right? Is that clear? Is that clear? Yes? Right. All those in favour of deferral, please show. Because I'm wanting this out of the way now. Deferral. Thank you.
Right, and the reason we're deferring is to look at the application of the affordable housing money pot and drainage off-site and access onto Gilroyd Lane.
Right, page 175, 20 Wellhouse Lane, Kirkheaton.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks planning permission for the erection of agricultural building and the recladding of an existing building at 20 Wellhouse Lane in Kirkeaton. The application site is outlined in red. The building subject to the application is the small rectangular block there, and that's the other building you went into the north of the site. The overall site forms 5.3 hectares of land, which includes the residential dwelling here and some wider agricultural land. The application has been submitted retrospectively, and the site is located within the green belt. This is the building in question, which members will have seen earlier today. It's constructed of random natural stone with a stone slate roof. It's split level, 2-storey at one end with an opening at one end where 2 tractors were parked, which can be seen there, and then it's single-storey at the other end, and members went into the other end through one of the personnel doors. This is the other building to the north of the site, which members also visited, which had various different equipment in it that members observed. So these are the plans of the application. The layout of the building would be a tractor store on the lower ground floor with 2 rooms for machinery store, and then the upper floor is stated as being for hay, foodstuffs and chemical storage. This is a plan that's been submitted by the applicant that sets out the overall, some of the overall history of the site. There is extensive information and statements that have been submitted with the application, and these are set out in detail in the committee report, and these have also been assessed by the council's own agricultural consultant. However, in summary, in relation to the applicant's case, and as set out in part on this plan, they've set out that the application site is a working farm. The existing building to the north, which is that one up there, already contains agricultural equipment, and there is not sufficient additional space for tractors, other machinery, feed and foodstuffs, which would be and are positioned in the building further to the south. They have also advised that a stone building has been constructed as the applicant considers it to be a traditional approach to an agricultural building, and there was access to local stone, a stone mason, which helped reduce the costs, and they were also looking for a secure facility. In addition, the applicant has put forward that the site of the building once housed a pole barn. The applicant is also willing to remove the shipping containers that are located to the east of the northern building, which members will have seen today out on site. They're also proposing to move a polytunnel within the garden, that the leisure building, which members will have also seen, I've got some photos of that later, has been reduced in size to what was there previously, and a goose shed has been removed. The points have been considered in detail by the planning officer and the council's agricultural consultant. However, it is not considered that the information submitted has sufficiently demonstrated that the building is generally required for agriculture. Planning officers consider that the existing building to the north provides sufficient space for an agricultural holding of 5.3 hectares in size, and given that the agricultural consultant has considered that the overall holding would provide a full-time equivalent job of only between 5 and 13%. In addition, planning officers are not persuaded that the site of the existing building was occupied by a permanent structure, the pole barn that the applicant refers to, and this view accords with the planning inspector's decision on a previous appeal at the site, which dismissed the appeal for the building and also upheld an enforcement notice. Planning officers therefore only give limited weight, and in terms of the other removal of buildings, planning officers only give limited weight to their removal. The polytunnel is located within the domestic curtilage and may potentially be able to be erected in the permitted development, or it could be viewed as being a temporary structure. The same could be said about the goose shed, and there are no existing plans of the buildings that have been, other buildings that have been lost. Furthermore, there are some concerns with the design of the building and that it's not appropriate for the use and is more of a domestic appearance that would not meet modern farming practices. There's also concern that the proposal would therefore have an impact on the open and rural character of the land and the local landscape. I'd like to now introduce Roger Henderson, who's the Council's agricultural consultant, who'll just provide a brief background about himself and also is a brief part of the assessment.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't appeared before you before, so I'll just briefly introduce myself. Roger Henderson. I trained and qualified at the Royal Agricultural College, which is now the Royal Agricultural University. I qualified as a rural chartered surveyor and have only worked in rural practice for the past 35 to 40 years. For the past 30 years, I've been agricultural surveyor for Leeds City Council, which, despite its urban appearance, is actually 2/3 green belt, not unlike yourselves. For the past 30 years, this work's included responsibility for the City Council's agricultural portfolio and also acting as consultant to Leeds Planning Department for agricultural and equestrian planning applications and as agricultural expert at appeals. In recent years, I've been asked to provide advice to both Wakefield and Kirklees Council on selected agricultural planning applications, and I've been asked to provide advice on this application for both an earlier pre-application inquiry and also the current application. In essence, my role is to comment whether the application building is a reasonable response to the agricultural needs of the holding. And I feel that there are two aspects to this. Firstly, it's evident from the history and application in 2017 that the building was constructed to standards for an educational facility and the application was not for purely agricultural use. The planning application was refused and subsequently appeal was dismissed. And then the applicant has subsequently proposed alterations to present it as an agricultural building. This presents a number of concerns, and I've outlined those in my report to committee, which you'll find on pages 209 and 221.
Thank you, Roger. And so just to conclude, the application is recommended for refusal as the information submitted has not demonstrated that a genuine agricultural need for the building has been demonstrated and that would have a harmful impact to visual amenity. Thank you.
We have three speakers. We've got Gugsi Ahmed. To start.
I'm going to get straight to the heart of the issues, which are the recommendations to committee. My first is to demonstrate that the first recommendation is factually wrong. The officer questions the requirement of this building, which is genuinely required for the purpose of agriculture. I needed to unpick this statement as I was uncertain of certain key words. What is agriculture? And the definition of agriculture is a science and practice of farming. And so therefore you then look up what is farming. It's the activity of growing or looking after animals. What is then a farm? And that's an area of land and its buildings. So what is a farmer, also known as an agriculturer? It's a person engaged in agriculture who owns or manages a farm. I meet all those definitions. The officer's report states I'm not a farmer as I've got other jobs. I'm a head teacher. The reasoning is quite woolly and open to interpretation until the experts, Department for Rural Affairs, National Union of Farmers, and indeed our expert witness, Mike Greetham, who also qualifies as an expert witness to the Planning Inspectorate, shed light on the matter. Simply, the officers are incorrect. It's much more of a science. Indeed, it's black and white. DEFRA doesn't have a term for hobby farming. You either have the permitted amount of land or not. You meet the written criteria or you don't. And when you do, like us, you're given a DEFRA number and registered as a farm. Using the officer's reasoning of not qualifying as a result of having another job would discount 72% of current farmers. Kirklees is in danger of coming up with a definition that is out of sync with the nationally recognised definition. Using the definition as it applies to me, the Queen would have no farmland. James Dyson, who's overtaken the Queen in how much land he owned, most of Lincolnshire now, is not a farmer as a result of being an inventor for Dyson vats. And Rupert Guinness, the most prolific landowner, cannot be recognised either. I engage in the science of farming. It's hard work, particularly when you're not from a background of farming. Where to buy things like staples, or staples as they're known as, ear tags, slurry, dealing with poisonous weeds, medicines, chemicals, seeding machinery, repairs, knowledge of improving drainage, hedges, pastures, walls, reseeding. I'm pleased to note the amendment stating the barn is an accepted building, so would be allowed. You can see the pasture at Hyacinth Farm is being farmed, otherwise it wouldn't be in the state that it's in and fit for purpose. We haven't enough room in the barns to store foodstuff and sensitive machinery, and you will have noted on your visit this morning that many items, non-sensitive, are kept outside or in hedge bottom.
Thank you. Your time's up.
We have Mike Garita. You can stay there. Sit. You can stay. No, on your one. Okay.
Thank you. My name's Mike Greetham. Good afternoon, Chair and gentlemen and ladies. I'm well qualified to be here. Farming is my industry. Farming is in my blood. I've got over 50 years professional experience in farming, 45 years as an agricultural consultant. Part of that is being an expert witness, including expert in planning matters. I'm a fellow of the Agricultural Law Association, a fellow of the Institute of Agricultural Management, a fellow of the British Institute of Agricultural Consultants, and I'm also the Chief Executive of the British Institute of Agricultural Consultants. In my professional opinion, this building is suitable, appropriate, and necessary for this type and size of holding. That takes account all holdings of this size and type. Specifically, Hyacinth Farm is an agricultural unit. It has a holding number. Being more than 5 hectares is defined as an agricultural unit according to DEFRA. It's eligible for farm subsidy. It's a traditional upland grass farm, great for permanent pasture, suitable for hay and grazing. Mr. Ahmed made improvements. Sheep are grazed on the farm. It's a linked holding with 3 others. This is 2 others. This is the way that small farms now work. Unfortunately, the council's own consultant's amended report contains significant and damaging inaccuracies. There's reference to the farmed area being 3 hectares of agricultural land. It is not. There is over 5 hectares of grassland. Mr. Henderson suggests a steel portal frame building with cement fibreboard would cost the same £40,000 that Mr. Ahmed has spent. That is simply not correct. The industry standard is over £200 per square metre. That means this would be in excess of £60,000. Mr. Ahmed received from Ram Fabrications, Hebden Bridge, in November 2016, a quote for £98,000 plus VAT, £120,000, which is 3 times the cost of what was already built. The 7-metre requirement for a tractor is simply wrong. The 2 tractors that are there are suitable for that size and they fit into that building. I repeat, this building is absolutely necessary. You can get hay bales in and out on the 2 said to be pedestrian accesses. To take down and replace this building with a portal frame would simply be not cost effective, and it would not, in my view, be a proportionate action. This building is needed on this farm, and that's the result of my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you. We have David Kerford.
Chair, councillors, good afternoon. My name is David Kerford. I'm Planning Director at KIPC. We took this case on a no-fee basis 2 years ago, and we're still working on it because we believe that the authority was incorrect in their actions, and we have an issue of ethics that we have to uphold as a private sector planning consultancy. Just to get to you a little bit of background information, you'll undoubtedly have heard of this site before. The initial I suppose the commencement of the proposal started in 2016 when Mr. Ahmed did the right thing. He spoke to the local authority, he spoke to a number of officers and was told that the development is permitted development and would not require planning permission. The authority on several occasions neglected to mention the prior approval route would be required. They failed to do so. In fact, when I went to a meeting with Mr. Franklin and Carl Battersby, Head of Service, in the 1st of March 2019, I had the opportunity to phone the council and ask the same question. I was given the same response. It's permitted development. You don't need planning, was the phrase used. That was passed on, and I understand that you've now informed your officers not to say these things. Moving on from that point, as we had prior approval was required and could not be delivered because the site was already under construction, planning permission was required. This, excuse me, this was necessary, and it was necessary to undertake a planning application process and then provide a set of information. For the second time of error, unfortunately, officers changed the description of Mr. Ahmad's application from creation of an agricultural barn to mixed-use development, including from agricultural barn to mixed use, including educational resource. Now, that was seen by the officers at the time as being a justification for an exceptional circumstance because they knew that a summer school takes place at the site. It does. Less than 28 days in a 12-month calendar period. Now, as that's the case, it's not a material planning matter. So it meant when the application was refused by officers on the same grounds and went to appeal, there was no way to win. What we actually have here now is the same building. It's been substantively changed under this application, both to its original format, which is agricultural use. A set of changes have been introduced in the design, again, free by architects, to now meet the inspectorate's requirements. Stone barns of this size, this shape, this appearance are accepted within the open countryside. Steel poodle frames is merely one option. And this particular barn format was accepted by the inspectorate as not being inappropriate. And in fact, strangely, despite the authority's recommendation for refusal, it says on the amendment to the report, the first point, agricultural buildings can form exceptions into...
Thank you. Your time's up. Thank you.
I urge you to read it. Thank you.
Is that it? Members. Councillor Firth and then Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I've never had an intro into farming before, ever, and it amazes me really that anybody can make a living off 5 hectares of land. My nephew and my family have over 50 acres of land, and I've had it for over 200 years, and we still can't make a full living on it. So how these guys know how to make a living on it, I do not know, and we run beef cattle. The gentleman over there has been doing some sorting things out for the council. He's more in line to my way of thinking than anybody else, because he does understand about farming and what you can make out of farming. We used to have one small tractor when I was doing it, a little Massey Ferguson, and that did all we needed. It pulled anything, it did a lot. You didn't need big John Deere tractors. I know they're quite large nowadays, but you don't really need them that size. And if my father was alive and he knew he could make money on 5 hectares of land, he'd be absolutely delighted. He never could do, or not on over 50 acres. You made a living, you scratched a living. That's what you did. So, and as far as planning permissions were concerned, everything that we built or put up there, other than wood nuts, we had to get planning permission. Nobody came along and said you don't have planning permission. So I don't know about these people have been led down the wrong path or what. But I've just had a lecture on farming, which I've never had in my life, by the way. And I've been doing it since, well, I haven't been farming all the time since I was 10, but I've been doing it for a number of years and enjoyed every minute of it, but never actually made a large amount out of the job, as no farmer around here did. They were always classed as pocket handkerchief farmers, and they just made a living, as they do in some of the Dales farms as well. So that's all I've got to say on it, and thank you for the lecture on farming. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, we got 2 consultants here. They both are well experienced and well known in the community. Yeah. One is Mr. Henderson, working for the Leeds City Council, and Mr. Greetham, who say he born and brought up in the farm family, and is well known and well experienced over 40 years. According to the Mr. Henderson's report, Mr. Henderson described the applicant, he is just a successful head teacher, not a farmer. That's not right to say like that. The applicant, according to the report, he bought this farm 20 years ago, and he moved in. He invested a lot of money by working as a teacher or head teacher. We still can't call him a farmer. Yeah, it's totally unacceptable. Mr. Henderson, first he made 2 visits to prepare his report. One is first visit was which is done in the spring time, when there were no stocks of farm or other being winter, because it was winter season, yeah. Second visit, he made it on October 18th, according to the report, it's not mine, on October 18, 2019. Mr. Henderson, according to the Mr. Greetham's report, he did not walk into the farm, but acknowledged Kirklees planning officer Hannah Thicket visited on 17th October, about 10-11 days ago, and according to her, she witnessed sheep grazing in the farm, and it was more than 60, but there's nothing in Mr. Henderson's report about that. Mr. Chair, we've been on the site visit this morning. We all have seen what is happening there. All those farms things there. Applicant must have been working hard, working by making his income on as a head teacher and putting a lot of money into the farm to survive. It's not right to say the applicant can't do the farm on his own. He got the family, he got the son who worked with them. So I'm not happy this report given by our council's consultant. Yeah, I think the report Mr. Greetham gave is one of the best reports, and we should accept the report. So I'm not going to recommend officer recommendation to refuse planning permission. What I'm asking for that, either we should approve this application on the merit what we have seen this morning at the farm. It indicate everything, this is a farm there. Or I would like to defer this application for the next meeting or after the meeting, to if there are some point by the officer is not done that, so let us defer this application and let officer and the applicant to negotiate what further they can be done to satisfy all the. Thank you.
Councillor Davies, then Councillor.
For me, the discussion we've had around whether Mr. Ahmed is a farmer or not a farmer, to be quite honestly, for me, is irrelevant. But what I'm looking at is what is the purpose of this building. And I acknowledge it is on a piece of land that is being used for farming, and I'm sure Mr. Ahmed is carrying out some sort of farming activities. But I have to say, and maybe it's my untrained eye, but having visited the site, I really do struggle to see that this was built for agricultural purposes. It does seem that there were 2 tractors really squeezed in very tightly at the bottom, extremely tightly, up against the wall, one of which was still protruding outside of the opening. So if there was some sort of door, that would never close. That seemed to me not to be designed for that purpose in particular. And upstairs, the storage, again, I've not got huge experience of farms, but didn't seem to me to be particularly well designed for the storage of agricultural materials, etc., in terms of the access. You know, I'm sure, I accept that maybe historically there may have been buildings with similar access, but surely at this point you would design something which would have much easier access and be much more fit for purpose. So my problem with this is, in line with some of the information we've been provided, I'm not convinced at this point that that was built entirely for agricultural purposes. And I think a lot of the discussion, other than that, about whether it's a farm, whether Mr. Ahmed is a farmer, to be honest, for me is irrelevant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was on the planning committee when this came up before, and I think we agreed at that time that it was an overdevelopment in the green. But if we're going to be a farm for use of the farm, it was too big for that particular farm. I think that's what we agreed at the time. Even if it's an overdevelopment in the green belt. It's been rejected before. When we went there were three tractors, and I've looked at the report from Mr. Greetham, and it says they have one tractor. There were 3 tractors there today. I don't know why, but is it necessary to have 3 tractors for that size of farm? As Councillor Firth says, for 50 acres, you have he had one tractor. Why did you have 3 tractors? We just couldn't understand it. I'm not a farmer myself, so I'm not an expert. I don't pretend to know much about farming, but to me, it was just unnecessary to have that size. Considering the buildings they have already, I would say that building was unnecessary, and I agree with Councillor Davies, and I move to oppose the development. So I propose to go with officer recommendation on this. I'm moving officer recommendation.
Is that seconded? All in favour, please show.
Sorry, let's get your hand up. We've got Councillor Graham.
Against? Abstentions?
Applications refused.
Page 223, 3 Marsh Gardens, Honley. Right, can we get the final planning application out of the way?
Hello, my name is William Simcock and I'm the case officer for this application. The site is a detached single-storey dwelling in its curtilage, which is situated in a residential area close to the centre of Honley. This is the site as it appears from the road. We get it from the corner. And these are other views of it. This is looking up towards Honley Village Centre. And here we are looking towards the garden part of the site. And these photographs show the wider context, looking down from near the Concord Street junction. Across the street to the proper made cake factory entrance and car park, and the bottom end of the street, and the spur of Marsh Gardens leading to the doctor's surgery. And these are some views from within the site. The proposal is for the demolition of the existing bungalow and the erection of a row of 3 townhouses. This is the elevation as it exists now. This is the general layout as proposed, and I shall also show you the elevations. This is a view from the street, and these are the other elevations, including the rear and side. The proposal has been modified in the application process in the reduction to 4 to 3 dwellings, reduction in roof height and pitch, and eliminating the dormers. Parking has also been rearranged to allow for the inclusion of more soft landscaping and the formation of a low boundary wall to the front. There are no special policy considerations on this site, constraints that is, that would appear to rule out residential development in principle. It's a strategic green infrastructure network. The implications of this are being considered in my report. The scale, layout and design are considered to harmonise with the surroundings and would respect the character of the streetscape as required by policy LP24. Development as amended will avoid any negative impacts on existing dwellings, having regard to window positions, layout and topography, as I've set out in more detail. Parking provision is deemed acceptable, 2 spaces for each 3-bedroom dwelling. Planning and Highways officers have taken note of the existing demands on Marsh Gardens arising from pedestrian and vehicular traffic, including that which is associated with the surgery and the high uptake of on-street parking. Giving due weight to these factors, it's considered that the local highway network is of a sufficient standard to take on the additional movements from 2 additional dwellings, that is, a net increase of 2 on what is there now, without giving rise to highway safety problems. Members will notice that among the concerns that have been expressed by some members of the public is the formation of the new driveways and how these might affect pedestrians, including those with limited mobility. One of the conditions I've recommended is that driveways be formed without curbs where they cross the existing footway so as to give priority to pedestrians. A similar approach, a similar condition that is, was imposed on another recent application on either side of Woodhead Road, just outside Honley Village. On the subject of ensuring safe and convenient use of the highway, the concerns raised by Ward Councillor Charles Greaves in respect of construction arrangements are noted. Should members conclude that a construction management plan is necessary in this instance, this matter would usually be dealt with by means of a pre-commencement condition. It would be unusual to require details in advance of determining an application. A pre-commencement condition would avoid any further preventable delays to the process. The site is in a sustainable location and the applicant proposes other measures which would bring benefits in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, a solar array at the rear and secure cycle storage arrangements, which can be the subject of conditions. And the bin storage arrangements is proposed to be at the front. Some slight modifications to the layout have been proposed following discussions. And this is what the architect proposes now, and this is considered to be acceptable, subject to some a few additional details like how the containers are going to be enclosed. To sum up, the proposed development is considered to represent an appropriate and efficient use of the land whilst avoiding overdevelopment. It would represent good urban design, provide safe access and adequate parking facilities, would conserve residential amenity and contribute to the aims of reducing carbon emissions. All planning issues and constraints have been sufficiently addressed by the applicant or can be addressed at the condition stage. Approval of full planning provision is therefore recommended subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, we have some speakers. We've got a Jane Woodage.
Mr Chair. I live at 1 Marsh Gardens and have done for many years. And from this report, safety for pedestrians, school children has been undermined. To clarify, Marsh Gardens is a cul-de-sac, so therefore obviously what goes up has to come back. Mention of Moorhouse haulage is extremely relevant in this case because their original plan, 2008, had 7 revisions and they pointed that highway insist opening had to be on Concord Street, not Marsh Gardens, due to danger and traffic. This can be clarified by the owner of Moorhouse's. Current plan has 14 dwellings and 26 parking places, which has been passed. On the 20th of November, the planning officer, Mr Simcock, at our request, came to look at plot number 3, taking many photos of the dangers of the traffic, mounting the footpath, of which he agreed, and as there was no room for 2 vehicles to pass on Marsh Gardens, contrary to his responding report, giving incorrect measurements of the road, which stating there is enough room, even with cars allowed to park on the left-hand side. He also noted vehicles' difficulty at the junction to the doctor's surgery and the proper made cake factory, large wagons having to back up from the surgery down to the factory, crossing the road. So it's astonishing that this report states no traffic problems and danger to pedestrians attending the doctor's surgery and the school children attending the school. Note in the report that states the lower end of Marsh Gardens is, according to local residents, used as an informal pick-up and drop-off point by the parents. Yet, further down the report states, although traffic volumes may be high at certain times of the day, especially school opening and closing, so it's very contradictory. From 3 openings on this plot, from 1 opening rather to 3 openings, this is the difficulty of tandem parking, which is absolutely crazy idea. Taking up pedestrian footpath, tandem parking creates too much manoeuvring, causing disruption of narrow roads where others are able to park, reverse, and reversing is blind, and this type of parking is not conversant with forward gear. This report for 3 Marsh Garden notes 21 representations, but in fact there were 29. No mention of cross-reference to the plan 2019, which is 16 Marsh Gardens, which is to erect 3 dwellings with associated drives. This has 4 representations and 3 of them are cross-referenced to number 3 Marsh Gardens, commenting again of the parking problems, danger to Marsh Gardens, problems with emergency services, vast amount of traffic.
30 seconds.
It was decided to transform the property into something that would be more acceptable nowadays, which would mean virtually it was not particularly attractive in the first place, had very little to build on or enhance to make it a desirable property in Honley, plus it isn't of an architectural style that might be typical of the area. The actual plot is large in proportion with the surrounding plots. In our first appraisals of the development, we looked at splitting the plot to create space for 2 or 3 further houses along with a refurbishment of the bungalow. This resulted in our initial proposal, which was to provide a single detached house between number 3 and number 5 and a pair of semi-detached houses between number 1 and number 3. The arrangement was shown in our pre-app and submitted to Kirklees Planning. The resulting response was not in support of our proposal, but it acknowledged that in planning terms there was scope for further development on the site. I'm running out of time, so I'll sum up here. Basically, we've been through the process every step of the way, working with Mr. Simcock, and it has been a fantastic procedure.
30 seconds.
We have ended up with the current 3 houses, because 2 houses are too big or too small on a big plot, and 4 houses you end up with too small. The plots being too small. So 3 is an acceptable compromise. It provides all the parking spaces, the amenity spaces, and the bedrooms.
Your time's up. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We've got one more speaker, and that's Nicola Booth.
My name's Nicola, I'm one of the investors. This is a small development of 3 houses. The bungalow on the plot at the moment is borderline derelict, and on the advice of a local builder due to the mould and structural issues would be unviable to repair. Building these houses will improve the site, make effective use of the land available, and bring a derelict site back to use. The new houses will add much needed family homes to the area, but also appeal to a range of people. They will add value to the other houses in the area and increase standards on the street. We have taken on board the advice from the planners, and we thank them for their time and feedback. We were advised in the beginning to look at a whole site development, so we have previously put forward 4 dwellings, but on the advice of planning have now reduced this to 3, and we agree this is a better fit for the plot. Based on the recommendations from the planning department, we have reduced the pitch of the roof, increased parking facilities, and added bin storage. We have also taken into account comments from planning and have amended the plans to ensure we comply with all the planning criteria while striving to create a sustainable development. We are hoping to use local trades, so create jobs in the local area. We are looking to source local materials and put money back into the community. The project manager is also local to Homebridge and knows the area and the community. We address the concerns of reversing over the driveways, and as the planners report and highways have stated, this is now a minimal issue to highways. We were grateful for the supportive planning report and take on board the conditions that may be made. And in light of the report's findings, we will be happy to provide a small stone wall to the front elevation to discourage cars parking and keep the houses looking in keeping with the surrounding area. We would also be happy to provide a schedule of works and confirm that any glazing to bathrooms will be obscure. As the planner has stated in his report, the look of the houses would work in harmony with the surrounding properties, and we believe we have sufficiently met all the aspects of planning criteria required. We would like to thank you for your time and hope that you will consider our development for full approval. Thank you.
Councillor Uller, and then Councillor Uppel and Councillor Homewood.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, can I just have some clarity on whether this was advertised as 4 dwellings or 3?
Through you, Chair, the initial proposal as submitted was for 4 dwellings. It was advertised by site notice and neighbour notification letter. When the amended plans were submitted, reducing that down to 3, it was re-advertised by letter only, not site notice. The site notice has a date on it, so the original site notice would have had a date when it was posted, and that would have explained that it was 21 days to make comment on that proposal. But I can confirm we didn't re-erect a new site notice for the amended proposal for 3 houses. It was done by neighbour notification letter.
I mean, we're on the site visit this morning. It is very, very tight. But I think, personally, just where I am, I'm happy to move the officer recommendation on the basis that some form of construction management plan is in place prior to commencement. But I think that's it.
Couple, yeah. Then Homewood and Councillor Firth.
Thank you. Can I also just raise the point that was made about car parking? I think one of the gentlemen suggested that two of the car parking spaces, which would be slightly off-site, are spaces that are available for disabled people in front of the surgery. Is that the case?
Yeah. So, through you, Chair, Jamie Turner, House Development Management. The parking spaces, I don't think they're not off-site, they're to the rear. So that when we came in on the bus and we walked around to the side, that there are 2 spaces there for Block B. In terms of disabled park, the surgery's just off the bottom left-hand corner. Disabled drivers can park on single and double yellow lines, as long as they're not causing obstruction themselves. So the surgery's got a car park. It's small. It has got a car park. I presume there are disabled spaces within that car park. It's not reducing the amount of on-street parking available to disabled drivers, insofar as it only will in terms of where the 3 driveways are. But the rest of the single yellow line, the only person who should be parking on that, and even then, it would only be in the case if they're not causing an obstruction, would be a disabled driver. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to second the motion to the officer recommendation. I think, I understand here the points about parking. However, I think the fact that there is quite a lot of double yellow lines and single yellow lines actually shows that there's quite a lot of mitigation here already than there would be in a lot of other scenarios. So, I'm comfortable with it, so happy to second that.
Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, it's very good to see some of this committee hasn't even been to Honley until this morning, because if they had have been to Honley and spent time there like I had done for years when we had a little shop at the corner of Concourt Street and Marsh Gardens, we spent most of our day going around trying to find somewhere to park. Yes, there are double yellow lines on Marsh Gardens, and if the traffic wardens aren't about, which invariably they're not, people park both sides of that road on there and you can't move. There is also to take into consideration the doctor's surgery, which is busy, I don't know, it's 5 or 6 days a week. It's certainly busy 5 days a week. And of course there is Tom Moore Houses, they're the Oldest people at the end of Concourt Street. They've basically taken over that bottom end of Concourt Street, and it's now got silly. There's so much going on there, and even 2 houses are going to make a mess. I cannot understand why we don't look into these things more seriously before we give any permission to do anything, because at the end of the day, it's going to create problems. And the problems are going to be the people who are the local councils are going to get the problems. They're going to get the earache, because at the end of the day, these are where people ring and get local councils involved. And I've got to tell you, when we had our little shop down there, it was, and we're talking 10 years ago. We're not talking last week. And I could not believe that there was somebody knocking a bungalow down. They were going to build 4. They haven't altered the sign on the poles, because somebody rang me the other day and said, "Is it still 4?" I didn't know what they were talking about. And apparently it was 4, knocked down to 3, and a parking for 4 cars. Well, can I just say, even if there's 3 houses, there's going to be more than 4 cars parked down there. I live in a row of 3 and we've got 15 cars on our row, and I live in a row of 7 and with 15 cars. So don't tell me you're just going to even it down to 2. You'll find that there'll be more bother on there if this goes through than enough. Trees, again. I spoke to officers years ago asking them to put temporary TPOs on trees that were near to where people were asking to build properties. Years ago they used to do. Now if somebody's going to build a house, first thing they do, whether they know whether they got plans to or not, cut the trees down. We know you're not supposed to cut trees down now. We're supposed to have signed up to climate change. But it only applies apparently to anything other than building houses and planning. As I was once told about the carbon footprint by one planning officer, not a planning condition that. So where do we go when there's no joined up thinking? Anyway, I'm not going to support this. I'm definitely not going to support this. Those who want to support it, by all means, but I'm certainly not supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Sokol. Against.
4.
Abstentions.
Application is approved.
And it clarifies that with the construction management plan as part of the proposal of Councillor Uller that was seconded. Thank you.